Live on a Tuesday, Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. Live video streaming X platform, YouTube, at Mike Gill Show. Follow, subscribe. What's up, everybody? Good to be with you. I'm your host, Mike Gill. Josh Hennings producing today's show. You out there. So, no Phils tonight. So we got day off from the baseball, but we'll get into some baseball. A lot of football on the table today with the owners' meetings. The tush push tabled. They didn't want to vote on it today. So the tush push stays for now. More details on that during football at 4 today. Adam Kaplan is in the house for today's football at 4. Flyers won again last night. I mean, what gives, man? Do they not understand what's supposed to happen here, Flyers? I mean, do you not understand what your duty is at this point of the season? I know people get so mad when you, yearn for teams to lose. It's just not the way you were brought up, right? There is no benefit to the Flyers to continue to win these games. Although Kevin Durso would argue and say that, they have so many draft choices, it doesn't really matter where they are. Listen, the premise is this. It will not change. The higher you are in the draft, the more talent you have a chance to grab. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to grab the right guy, but if you are in the 6th spot and you wanted the guy in the 3rd spot and you could have been in the 3rd spot, you're kicking yourself, like the New York Football Giants, who didn't need to win a game late in the year, and yet they did, and instead of having the choice of who they want, they now have to hope the guy they want falls to them because they couldn't come up with the simplest of execution of finding a way to not win a game. The Sixers, I would imagine tonight, will show everybody how it's done. They'll play the Knicks. What's the line on the game tonight? Sixers and Knicks. Take the Knicks. That game won't be close. The Sixers are – that team is so down rotten that it's actually fun now that they're this bad. You've gotten to the point where it's fun that they are bad because now you know that they are no way, shape, or form going to screw it up. They know their duty. They know their role. They're 13.5-point doggy dogs tonight, and they know. Listen, we are here for one reason and one reason only. We are trying to make sure we get into the top 5 worst teams in all of the NBA. This is my mission if I wish to accept it. And the Sixers have said, yes, I accept. We talked about it last week. They need to close out the season on a 15-game losing streak. Well, they've lost 8 straight games. Kudos to the Sixers, who have figured out that their mission is to no longer be competitive. The Flyers, on the other hand, now listen, the Flyers do have multiple first-round picks. They have 3 of them. So Durso is correct. It is not nearly as imperative for the Flyers to keep losing games. However, let's not, gloss over this. The worse you are, the better your possibility of a better player. Now, again, you have to trust that you're going to be able to pick the right player. But I'll take my chances to have more guys in the draft pool than just, moving back a couple spots. If I'm in the number 2 spot in the draft, that means there's only one guy off the board. One. That means I have carte blanche to every other player that is available to me in the draft. I will take my odds with more players than less. So this whole notion of the Flyers shouldn't be losing games, listen, what are they gaining from winning these games? It's sad. It's a shame that that's the way it is. But people who think they finished the year strong and that will carry over to next year. This team's not going to look anything like the team that was here this year. They're going to have a completely different looking team, you would hope anyway, because if you bring this team back, guess what? You're going to have similar results. They are 31-36, 71 points, by the way, the Philadelphia Fly guys. So anybody who wants to wonder where they are in the wild card standings, they are still kind of in it. Do you want them to make the wild card, or is that something we're hoping for? I mean, they're only 6 points out of a playoff spot at this point.
I know I've said it before, but I have to say it again. You can't apply blindly to the NHL what we do for the NBA.
I agree with that. It's not as imperative in the NHL because the talent is definitely more dispersed. There's different reasons why guys don't go in certain spots in the draft that they really should go in the certain spots of the draft based on, they might not come over for a couple of years. Maybe they won't sign. Their signability is a problem.
Right.
That happens in baseball too.
Well, also in hockey, there's a lot of guys who don't go high in the draft because some guys only go high because, as you mentioned, some guys are being stashed and teams are not even trying to get a guy. And you have other players that just not developed yet. And some guys, their floor is higher than their ceiling and blah, blah, blah. So
yeah, listen, the NHL draft
is
not
very
nearly,
inexact science.
It's not nearly as prosperous as the NBA draft can be. Now could be, hold on real quick. Recently, the NHL draft has had some top picks that have changed the fortunes of some organizations. I don't believe that player is in this particular draft.
Maybe not. Maybe they are. We may never know because to this day, Durso was on with me last night. He brought up the year that Nolan Patrick was taken number 2 and that Nico Hirscher was taken number 1. And Durso brought up the fact that the best player from that draft was taken 4th overall. He said that Cole Makar is so much better than the other 3 guys picked ahead of him. It's almost embarrassing.
And that happens a lot where, listen, in the NHL, it's so – but my point of what I'm saying is there have been drafts like the last couple of years where there was a definitive player that you were really playing.
You're talking about like Connor Bedard a couple of years ago.
Bedard would be one. Eichel was one. Now, Eichel hasn't turned out to be the player that they anticipated. A lot of that is injury-related. Calabrini, I think, was last year. Was he the guy who went to San Jose? He's turned into a pretty good player.
Yeah, San Jose.
And I mean, that team, now that hasn't changed their fortunes. They still kind of stink.
Right.
But Bedard, I mean, when he got drafted, if you ended up with the number 1, now you would say the Flyers are not getting the number 1 pick, and there's a good chance they don't. And then you're right. Now you go into a spot where the number 2, 3, 4, now it turns into a crapshoot. So I do acknowledge and agree that getting a draft choice in the hockey world is a lot different than the NBA world. The Sixers, they have nothing to gain by winning here. In fact, they actually hurt themselves big time because they, unlike the Flyers, could lose their draft choice. The Flyers are getting 3 regardless here. And if that's the case, if the Sixers win a game and then that causes them to slide into the 7th spot, they owe their pick to the Oklahoma City Thunder. And after this season, you cannot afford that to happen.
Yeah, Sixers are living on a prayer. Flyers are living with currency, at least.
Yeah, and listen, if the Flyers end up with pick 5, 15, and 26, you still got 3 guys that are entering your roster that have pretty good talent. Now, the Sixers, on the other hand, you can get a top 5 pick in the draft, and you might land a pretty good player. If you lied out of the top 6, you have to give that pick to Oklahoma City. You get no player. So it is imperative for the Sixers to continue to lose. And tonight they have a very losable game. Highly losable. Highly losable. Flyers, though, last night, they go out and they beat Nashville, who's not a very good team either. In fact, Nashville's worse than Philadelphia is. But that's the thing. You had a chance to try to catch like Buffalo, who's really bad. You lost to them. You beat them. And because you beat them, Buffalo's got 68 points. You have 71. If you would have lost that game, you're now flipped with Buffalo, and Buffalo's got worse draft odds than you do. I don't think you can catch Nashville's pretty terrible. This is a pretty bad team that they beat last night 2-1. So, yeah, listen, I do agree with you guys that the hockey draft, it is not nearly as imperative. But the Sixers, I think we all agree, there is no benefit for them to win a game.
Well, the problem with the Sixers, they took too long to actually admit that the season was over.
They did.
So that hurts their situation. It makes almost like it makes every Sixers game night like a please lose, please lose, please lose.
I love Keith Pompey from the Inquirer. He writes these articles. Sixers lose, must lose game. It's great. Like a must-lose game. Sixers, by the way, currently, Utah is the worst team in the league, followed by the Wizards, Charlotte, New Orleans, Philadelphia. Philadelphia has now fell 2.5 games behind Brooklyn. It's pretty good because they were neck and neck. Brooklyn's won 2 in a row.
It helped with the Wizards, right? The Wizards helped you the other night.
Well, you beat the Wizards. You
Wizards
lost
beat
to the
you,
Wizards
yeah.
at home, which is right now one of the hardest things to do. You lose a home game to the worst team in the league. But Brooklyn has won 2 straight, and the Raptors have won 4 in a row. So the Raptors and Brooklyn have now pulled Toronto's 5 games ahead of you. So you are not worried about them anymore. It's you and Brooklyn, 2.5 games separating you with about 7 left to go. Don't mess this up. Now, the big question is,
right?
Can you catch New Orleans? New Orleans.
Well, New Orleans just said they're sitting Zion and McCollum for the rest of the year.
They won last night. Or they won. Yeah, they won last night. New Orleans won their last game.
They did.
They won. They beat Charlotte in a game that neither team had any desire to win.
Well, neither team also had neither of their stars. Ball is out for the year. I mentioned Zion and McCollum.
Neither team has one of their start. Insignificant. Neither one of them wants their start. They don't want to win the game. Both teams are.
I'm trying to explain to the audience who's not watching what's going on.
These teams are bad. They don't want to win. They have no incentive to win. None. So you have 2 teams, Charlotte and New Orleans, who are right now. Charlotte is the 3rd worst team in the league, and New Orleans is the 4th worst team in the league. Neither one of those teams have any interest in winning the game. Now, I think both of them are pretty safe. But they're not the Sixers. See, the Sixers are different. They can't drop out of the top 5 because they owe their pick to somebody else. These other teams are trying to lose because they want to finish as one of the 3 worst teams in the league. Now, New Orleans winning that game against Charlotte puts them now 2 games out. Why is being in the top 3 worst teams important? Because the top 3 worst teams have equal odds to get the number 1 overall pick in the draft. And right now, Charlotte is 2 games better, or 2 games worse, if you will, than the Pelicans are. So right now, the teams with the best odds, the top 3, that each have, what is the percentage for the top 3 teams? They're all like 14, 14, and 14.
I thought it was 13, but let me pull it up.
Utah, Washington, and Charlotte, they right now have equal odds for the number 1 overall pick, followed by New Orleans and then Philadelphia.
So it's 14, 14, 14. You had it right. It was the top 3. Then after that, it's 12.5. Right now, the Sixers would be 10.5.
Yes. So Philadelphia would right now you have the 3 teams that have 14, 14, 14, then New Orleans, and then Philadelphia. Right now, the Sixers are 2.5 ahead of Brooklyn to be in the top 5. If their pick is, 7?
Top 6 protected.
So if they get the 6th pick, they keep it.
Yes.
7 through 30, they owe it to Oklahoma City.
Correct.
Unbelievable. So that's why it's a little different for Philadelphia, because the difference between them moving up a spot and down a spot is much more significant than these other teams. Now, Charlotte, though, losing that game to New Orleans puts them in better position for the number 1 overall pick. And the reason why this is such a big conversation is because this year there is a number 1 pick that a lot of people are now playing for. So there was some scuttlebutt a while back that Cooper Flagg may go back to Duke. Well, the head coach at Duke, John Shire, has come out and said that's not happening. We are not even going to let him come back to Duke. He's going to go to the NBA. So with that announcement, now the number 1 overall pick now becomes a something. Now it's you are playing to try to get this kid Flagg. Right. And I'm not saying playing. You are trying to lose so that you can get Cooper Flagg.
And, again, this is where the NBA is kind of a dumpster fire because you're basically having to put out the worst product possible in order for you to get the best player possible.
Well, and I have an idea that I threw out there, and we'll talk about that coming up in about 15 minutes from now. Just a real quick, here's what New Orleans has left. New Orleans is 2 games ahead of Philadelphia. They play the Clippers, the Lakers, the Bucks, the Nets, the Bucks, Miami, and Oklahoma City.
That's at least 5 losses.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They have 7 games left.
So it's probably 2 and 5.
The game is at Brooklyn, by the way. That is obviously the worst team that they play the rest of the way. And they play home against Miami. Miami would be probably the next worst team.
Right.
It is highly conceivable that New Orleans goes 0-7.
It's possible, yes.
Very possible.
I just don't. New Orleans is weird because New Orleans is functioning. You're complaining about the Flyers. That's how New Orleans is functioning at the end of this year. They are, for some reason, winning some of these games. They're really not supposed to be winning, and nobody knows why, except for the coach keeps saying that, whoa, we're trying to be competitive.
Well, they are 2 games ahead of Philadelphia. So they would have to win at least 2, and that would tie the Sixers. And that's if the Sixers lose out. I don't know what their regular seasons are, who has the tiebreaker there. But for Philadelphia, their final stretch of games reads like this, all right? I know this is riveting to say. We need to see how many games you can actually lose here. Here we go. New York, Milwaukee, Minnesota, Miami, at Washington, Atlanta, and Chicago. That is the Sixers' final stretch of games. They have also 7 games left. Obviously, the one huge game on that schedule is when Philadelphia goes to Washington and plays. If you win that game, could that be the difference between where you end up in the standings? Because right now, you need to at least try to keep that cushion between you and Brooklyn. Forget trying to catch New Orleans. You have to be able to keep that cushion between you and Brooklyn. 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. Mike, the only positive thing about the Sixers is that they are losing and the tickets are so cheap. I got $7 tickets to watch them lose on April 13th. I'm taking my 5-year-old grandson to his first game because of that. Yeah, I mean, you're right. That's the positive right now is if you want to go see an NBA basketball game, and I can't even guarantee that this is NBA level quality stuff with some of the guys up there, but if you like going to the arena, if you just like being in the building and you want to see a game, then you got really cheap tickets and you can probably get pretty decent seats.
New Orleans was 2-0 against Philadelphia this year.
Okay, so if they finish with the same record, Philly
would be lower.
So that's one positive. So the scenario is if New Orleans and Philly tie, Philly would be the 4th worst team in the league, and New Orleans would be the 5th worst team in the league.
Correct. And by the way, New Orleans is 3-3 in their last 6. That's what I was talking about earlier. So they are, for some reason, winning some of these games.
Yeah, Philadelphia is 1-9 in its last 10 games. And as I just read that schedule off for you real quick, you take a look at the teams that they play. Every team other than Washington has something to play for. Atlanta right now is the 7th seed by 1 game over Orlando. Chicago is 1 game behind Miami for the 9th seed. Miami is 1 game up on Chicago for the 10 seed. And obviously those teams would rather have home games. So you are looking at a scenario where every team that Philadelphia plays the rest of the way has something to play for. The only team that really has nothing to play for, honestly, is tonight. The Knicks. The Knicks are locked into the 3 seed. They can't be 2, and it's very far-fetched, and I don't even think Indiana can catch them. So the Knicks really don't have anything to play for the rest of the way. Minnesota is a half game away from getting out of the play-in game, and they are tied with the Clippers for the 8th seed. So Minnesota still has something to play for. The only game that Philadelphia has left on their schedule where the team has nothing to play for is Washington. So that bodes well for the Sixers not catching a team kind of napping.
I will say the only good news about the Knicks game tonight is their head coach, Tom Thibodeau.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that he's going to take the pedal off the gas.
No, he's going to do the opposite.
What?
Thibodeau.
Yeah, no, he'll play his guys.
Yeah, he'll play his guys until they die.
Yeah. Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. Live video on the X platform, YouTube, at Mike Gill Show. 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. No Phils today. We'll talk a little Phils with Frank Close. His mailbag is coming up in 39 minutes from now. So if you want to get a Phillies question on the air today for Frank, let us know. A Phillies question for Frank at 609-403-0973. That's the way you can get on board. And Frank obviously has his mailbag up on the website at 973ESPN.com. A couple more text messages coming in. We'll read them coming up on the other side. But when we return, I talked about the tanking problem. Now, I want to be clear about this, okay? Yes, I supported the process and what the Sixers did. I have no problem with the concept. That said, I support it because the NBA system sets up to where that's something that you're allowed to do. I hate the fact that the NBA allows it. I've been preaching for years that this is an awful way to promote your game. And I came up with a way to try to combat that. And they talked about it today on a prominent podcast that maybe the NBA is listening to. Could the NBA take my idea? You'll hear that coming up next on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, and watch the show on your home TV, phone, tablet, or device at Mike Gill Show on YouTube and the X platform. All right, 228. Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN. So, Josh, I had a thought and an idea, which I generally do with stuff like this. I can't stand the tanking. As much as I endorse it, if you're going to allow it, I hate that you can do it. Does that make sense?
I have always tried to explain to people, you don't endorse tanking. You endorse the idea of having a plan to get yourself out of mediocrity.
Yeah, I mean, well, I obviously, no one will ever convince me that winning a game for the Sixers tonight makes any sense. What does a win tonight do for them?
Nothing.
Isn't that sad?
It's very sad.
And all these teams are sitting their best players because they don't want to win.
Correct.
That should never be. So I want to be clear as possible. People think I'm like this. I want to lose games. No, I just endorse the fact that getting a better draft choice makes more sense.
Again, I've always said, you don't endorse tanking. You endorse having a plan to get out of mediocrity.
So I put together an idea of the teams that don't make the playoffs, which there's 10 of them.
Correct.
The 10 teams that do not make the playoffs go into a single elimination tournament. 9 versus 10 becomes the 8 seed. Or 9 versus 10, and then the winner plays the 1.
The 1.
Yeah. And then you kind of go from there and have a 8-team single elimination bracket. The teams that have the better record get the home game throughout. Okay?
Okay.
So it incentivizes winning late in the year. The better your record, let's say I'm the Sixers, winning tonight would mean more because I possibly could have a home game in this non-playoff tournament field.
Well, I was going to say they should appeal to the owners because they're going to be selling more tickets.
Right. They want the home game. They want to play at home, and the team wants to play at home. You want a better chance to win, you want to play at home. Now, the thought of why do I want to play to get the number 1 pick, that guy could take my job, that might be out there.
Maybe.
But I can guarantee you the coach is going to try to win that damn game.
100%.
100%. So you have all the teams that don't make the playoffs, and they go into a single elimination tournament. The winner of that tournament and what place you finish in, all these tournaments, there's first place games, there's second place games, then you're playing like in the Olympics, you're playing for the bronze medal, then you can play a fourth place game, a fifth place game, and that sets the draft
lottery
selections. Yes. It also opens up a television window for a Netflix or an Amazon Prime. They buy this package, and I guarantee you the fans who want that number 1 pick will watch these games with high anticipation. Maybe not the 4th or 5th place game, but they will definitely be watching to see who wins this tournament.
I think you would say that more people, Mike, would watch the final for who wins number 1 pick over the NBA Cup.
No doubt about it. There would be more interest in who wins the number 1 overall pick than who wins the play-in tournament. I also have an idea for the play-in tournament, but let's get to this first. Andrew Marchand is the most prominent sports media analyst out there. He writes for The Athletic, and his podcast is called Everybody Loves Sports Media. I tweeted about this very topic, and the guys discussed the tweet today on an episode of Everybody Loves Sports Media. Here is what Andrew Marchand said about my idea. We'll have to try that again. I don't know what happened there. Yeah, try that button. Hit that button there. Okay, do it again. Let's try it again now. All right, it looks like it should have worked, right? Maybe. I'm looking at it like this should have worked. All right, here's what Andrew Marchand said.
But I don't know. I think that'd be pretty exciting. You got a year where, Zion Williamson hasn't turned out to be Zion Williamson. But if what he was supposed to be, or if you have whoever the number 1 pick is and you have a tournament, I think that would garner a lot of interest. I think it's a great idea, and I like it.
All right, I like it too. When you have Cooper Flag, it's the Cooper Flag Cup. These teams are playing for a chance to draft Cooper Flag.
Right.
You have the Washington Wizards now having something to play for. you have the Utah Jazz now having something to play for. Losing games at this stage of the season isn't beneficial. It actually hurts you because you might be the 10th seed in this tournament and have to go on the road and play and win multiple games to try to get the number 1 overall pick.
Right. If you are the Washington Wizards right now, you have a lesser chance at getting Cooper Flagg under your scenario.
Yep. All right. So, what about the NBA? Would they be interested in something like this, and are they paying attention to the Sports Bash's idea?
The NBA people listen, and I know they're going to put this to Adam Silver's attention. He's probably listening, and this might happen. Mike Gill show gets credit.
Well done, Mike Gill. I can't disagree. I especially like the 8-team single elimination for the number 1 pick. That would be fascinating.
I think I'd love watching that.
Yeah, no, that would be good. Anything to juice it a little bit. Give me a little juice.
Also, it takes away the idea of tanking.
Takes away the idea of tanking. Adam Silver listening to my idea, Josh?
I mean, listen, anything's possible. I mean, if Marchand says it's possible, then I'm not
Well,
going
he
to
says
deny
Silver listens to his pod. They're giving me the credit for it. It was the brainchild of the Sports Bash. So, yeah, we'll call it the Sports Bash Cup.
Listen, all
the battle
I know
for the number
is
1 pick.
If Silver takes your idea here, I would like him to also call you about everything else because I think there's a lot of things you could maybe help him with.
Well, I have an idea for the NBA Cup that make that thing actually
you help with the All-Star game.
something better. I don't know about that.
You're out on helping with that.
But an 8-team single elimination tournament for the number 1 pick would drive excitement. It would make these 10 teams that have nothing to play for right now, and it would say, no, I do have something to play for right now. I guarantee you wouldn't see Quentin Grimes resting tonight. I guarantee. Now, you might say, well, okay, Quentin Grimes. I guarantee Tyrese Maxey's not as hurt as as it appears.
Right.
Tyrese Maxey's playing the game tonight. And now if you're a fan that goes to these games, you're not seeing guys sit out games late because they're trying to win these games to try to move up the draft board and get into this tournament and have a home game to get that number 1 overall pick.
And also just use the Sixers as a specific example. Maybe you don't bring Paul George back as early as you did from his injuries. Maybe you give him more time to sit in January and February because you tell Paul George, look, even if we can't make the postseason, Paul, why don't you get healthy so we can win down the stretch of the season to get that 1 seed for the number 1 pick?
Yeah, and listen, I think I definitely think that look, the other part is the team, and he talks about this here. One of the issues with this could be the teams that just missed the playoffs. Are you going to have something happen between the team that's 10 and 11?
I don't know. I'd almost make it so the team that barely misses the playoffs has a better chance to win the lottery. But then I guess maybe the issue there is that maybe you've missed the playoffs on purpose, so you get like one of these stars. There's some things you have to transition on here, but it's overall very good.
Yeah, I still think there's some good energy around that.
Yeah, very good. I agree with you, Marchand. And his point is what I've said for years. I've actually said make the team that finishes 11th get the best lottery odds, right? If you finish the first team out of the playoffs, and his point has been, a lot of people have come back to me on, well, then the team that's 10th and 11th, they don't even want to be in the play, and they rather be the number 1 seed, to which I answer with this. Okay, fine. I'll play along and agree with you. You're right. If I'm 10, I'd rather be 11 and get the number 1 overall pick rather than being in the play-in tournament. But you know what? That means there's only maybe 2 or 3 games that you're not trying to win as opposed to 20 and multiple teams. You have maybe 2 teams trying to lose games, maybe 1 or 2 games, as opposed to 10 teams trying to lose 20 games. So that's why I think this idea might be a little bit better. As 1 through 8, you have an 8-team tournament. Now there's 10 teams. So, 9 and 10 would play. Then the winner of that plays 8. And now you have your 8 teams in the tournament here. And now it's 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7, 3 versus 6, 5 versus 4. Single elimination. Bang, bang, bang. You get a champion. That team's the number 1 overall pick. Second place team obviously gets the number 2 overall pick.
I mean, if you're really that concerned about creating a dynamic where teams don't tank the last couple games of the season, you create a greater value for the play-in tournament. Maybe you go, and this has to be collectively bargained, but I mean, is there maybe a way that you financially incentivize the teams that make the postseason a little more. To be like, hey, don't tank to miss the 10 spot because you're going to miss out on money.
Possible. Sad that you have to do that.
To me, I'm just trying to come up with an idea that would avoid that. Be like, hey, look, don't tank because you're going to get, I don't know how much money. Because I know one of the problems that's been debated in the team sports, and this is a topic that I remember Marchand bringing up a while ago, which is, Marchand talked about one of the problems with a lot of these leagues is that there's not a great enough financial incentive to make the postseason versus not make the postseason. And the question has always been that I have about that is, then why don't you just create more of a financial incentive for the team? Like, for example, instead of saying everyone gets the same piece of the TV money, why don't you say, hey, you made the postseason, you get more TV money?
I guess. Like, that whole part of it would all have to be collectively bargained.
Right.
Like, and so with this, by the way, hey, we are now going to make the teams that don't make the playoffs play into a tournament to try to get the number 1 overall pick. That would have to be collectively bargained, obviously. But I think a TV network, a streamer, an Amazon Prime,
Netflix.
an Apple TV, a Netflix, somebody, even maybe TNT that no longer has the NBA, maybe they say, hey, we'll take this tournament and we'll play these games. And, hey, we'll try to get a big audience to see who gets the number 1 overall. Summer League games get people watching them. This would be bigger than a Summer League game.
Way bigger.
Bigger. The other thing is, I think if you take the in-season tournament, now I've advocated of just make the whole month an in-season tournament, the whole month of whatever one. But what if the last month of the season was the in-season tournament?
Okay.
And the team that wins the in-season tournament at the end of the season, in this last thing, you have the teams that are in the current playoffs playing in the in-season tournament, and the teams that are not in the playoffs, that is where they're playing for the number 1 pick. So then you wouldn't have to collectively bargain the situation. You would make that the final month of the season. The 10 teams that are in the playoffs, you're now in. The 10 teams that are out of the playoffs, you are now out. So what you're doing is you're making less regular season games. It's the way to get less regular season games and still have a play-in tournament and have those games be towards the 82. Do you know what I'm saying?
The only problem.
So after, say, 70 games, that is determined who makes the playoffs. After that, we now go into an in-season tournament to get you ready for playoff-level games.
Right.
And then teams that don't make the play-in, the in-season tournament are playing for the number 1 pick.
I'm following what you're saying, but I know a lot of people are going to have trouble deciphering what you just said, and for the same reason why people can't follow Premier League soccer. Because what you just proposed is something that the average sports fan is going to be absolutely confused about.
It's pretty simple, though.
Simple to you because it's your idea.
Well, the regular season is essentially now 70 games. It's a 70-game regular season with an in-season tournament, which is all this is now. Those in-season games, those in-season tournament Emirates Cup games that we see back in December with the crazy courts, they are regular season games. They go towards your record.
Correct.
What I'm saying is move them to the end of the year. After the 70-game mark, they are the playoff teams. You have 7. It's almost like a high school sports where the cutoff date is a certain date, and any game after that doesn't count towards making the playoffs. So after the 70th game, or everybody gets to 70, and after everybody's at 70 games, whoever's in whatever place, that's what the standings are for the playoffs. And then you play the in-season tournament, and that gets you ready to play high-level games to get you ready for the NBA playoffs. It's almost like,
or the number 1 pick.
And then the teams that aren't in the playoff field. So you have an in-season tournament with the teams that made the playoffs in one bracket and the teams that did not make the playoffs
in another bracket.
And you have basically 2 in-season tournaments. One is to get ready for the playoffs with the financial gain that they get from it, and the other one is for the number 1 overall pick. So you would add the extra 12 games at the end of the schedule in this in-season tournament. But the regular season, it's a way to say, hey, the regular season, we're going down to 70 games, which everybody says, well, they're never going to go down from 82 games. Okay, maybe they won't. But if they play 70, and then the
12 games.
last 12 of the season are a quote-unquote in-season tournament, and you only have 70 games towards your playoff entry. That will change the perception, don't you think?
It will. Now, my question for that is, what do you say to the people who say, well, that's unfair to a team that maybe had an injury earlier in the year and they're trying to get in right now into like the 7 or 8, 9 seeds? How do you factor in the team that might be like, hey, I want to still make the postseason, but maybe some unlucky circumstances forced me out?
Sorry.
Can I still play in? Like, is there a way that the NBA Cup can help you maybe get a final playoff spot still?
I'm workshopping this,
Okay.
but I think I'm getting somewhere.
So you're not against the idea of using maybe.
Well, I would say, like, if you put the in-season
final
tournament
12
at the
games.
end, the team that wins that tournament or the final 4, do they get like an automatic playoff berth?
Maybe.
But that kind of negates the whole teams that don't make the playoff playing for the number 1 pick in this last month of the season playoff tournament.
Well, again, you said that the teams that are the teams that are not making the postseason are in one bracket.
Yeah, so you're talking about a team that would be in that field.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe is it like, hey, if you win the final 12 games, you make the final playoff spot, and if you don't,
No, you're out. Sorry you had an injury. That's unfortunate. That happens to everybody.
all right.
You're out. But you could be the number. That's where the team that has the injury, like the Sixers, for instance, their season is due to injury. But let's say Paul George and Joel Embiid came back and played in this tournament, and they won the number 1 overall pick. Now they get the number 1 player as well, and they add that to their team.
Okay.
245, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. What do you guys think of those ideas? Shoot us a text, 609-403-0973. I know it was a little all over the place, confusing, but I'll throw it back out there and try to simplify it a little bit. Plus, Frank Close has the Phillies mailbag. If you have a Phillies question for Frank, 609-403-0973 on the text board. We got more Sports Bash coming up. All right, 251. Are you in the land of confusion based on some of my ideas right there? You're not.
I'm fine.
Yeah.
But I'm also listening to you every single day, and I'm used to what you say and how you say it. So to me, it's not a problem.
So essentially, a lot of fans complain that 82 games is too many.
Right.
So I would say at the 70-game mark, that is the cutoff of playoffs or non-playoffs. So after 70 games, whatever your record is, you're either in the playoffs or you're not in the playoffs. Now, anything after that does not change the dynamics of anything.
Correct.
So you're not tanking games the whole month of March. And what you're doing is playing an in-season tournament in the month of March, which then would serve as a tournament for the number one overall pick for the non-playoff teams. So all of these teams that did not make the playoffs after the 70-game mark, those 10 teams in the month of March are now playing a single elimination tournament to get them to the end for the number one overall pick. The teams that do make the playoffs, the 20 teams that get into the playoffs, they are playing a in-season tournament, and it's essentially just like the Emirates Cup. Nobody really cares who wins it, but what it is high-level games to get you prepared for playoff basketball. Instead of playing these games down the stretch where you might be facing a team that stinks and has no business or desire to win. You're at least playing a playoff quality team for the last month of the season to get you ramped up and prepared for your playoff push. And your playoff positioning is already determined.
So what is then the value of winning the cup?
The money at the end. What's the value of winning the cup now? Now, if you want to say this, the teams that are in the playoffs, they would play in the NBA Cup, and those wins could still change the playoff
seeding.
But the playoff teams have already been determined, but the seeding can still be determined.
Okay, so again,
basically it's knocking out the non-playoff teams from playing in meaningful games down the stretch. Because it's not fair if I'm in a playoff race and I'm stuck playing hey, I got to catch you, and you're playing Washington, and I'm playing a team. You know what I'm saying?
And again, we're getting back to now you're tapping back into the European football model, which is you have a cutoff point every single season in the Premier League where at that point the playoff teams are in. The seeding of the teams is still up for grabs.
Right. I have no problem with there's 20 teams that make the playoffs, 10 and 10 in the East and the West. You make a in-season tournament in the month of March for those teams only. The other 10 teams that do not make the playoffs, there's 5 in the East and 5 in the West that do not make the playoffs. They would then play in their own tournament in season March, and that tournament would determine who has the number one overall pick.
Number one pick, right.
Yes.
And again, everyone is still playing the agreed-upon 82-game schedule. We're just changing what the cutoff point is for the postseason.
Yeah, it keeps the owners happy with the 82 games, but it gives the fans a 70-game season, which makes the regular season matter more and make it more competitive. It gives you this stupid in-season tournament, which they like, and it makes that have more meaning to it now because the in-season tournament only consists of teams that have made the playoffs, and it helps determine your playoff seeding in the last month of the season. So all those March games for those teams will matter more, and all the teams that didn't make the playoffs in the month of March, they will all have games that are for the number one overall pick. We'll go to Frank Close's Phillies takes next. Hour 2, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. We're live on the X platform, YouTube, at Mike Gill Show. Subscribe, like, share, be a part of the show. Easy to do, 609-403-0973. Shoot us a text with your thoughts. Phillies win yesterday. And this hour of the show brought to you by Broadlee's Plumbing, Heating, Air Conditioning, your trusted source for heating, plumbing, service, and installation for generations. Call 609-390-3907, online, broadlees.net. Frank Close covers the Phillies for 97.3 ESPN.com. He is back with another edition of the Phillies Mailbag as he joins us on a Sports Bash Tuesday, and we take a look at all things Phillies as they beat the Rockies yesterday. And obviously, there's a lot happening with the Phils. You got the Trey Turner injury situation. You've obviously got the team struggling against starting pitchers and then kind of opening up a can of you-know-what on the bullpens here. Is that a sustainable thing? You got torpedo bats. You got a whole bunch happening there. So we'll bring Frank Close in from 97.3 ESPN.com for another edition of the Mailbag here on the Sports Bash. Frank, what's going on, my friend?
Not a whole lot. How are you, Mike?
All is good, man. And, obviously, day off today. I hate the beginning of the season. You got afternoon games, days off, another afternoon game, day off again. I got to get into the routine of the 7 o'clock game, and that will start up tomorrow. But give us a couple of overview thoughts from you so far on the opening series in Washington and then the home opener yesterday. What is something that has stood out to you, Frank?
Well, kind of as you just said, they get off to a little bit of a slow start each game, it seems. The starting pitching, they haven't been able to hit. But it's almost like when the bullpen comes in, all of a sudden their confidence kicks in and they do just fine. That was the one thing that really stood out, is that they don't seem to really get it into gear yet. I don't know if it is a confidence issue, as I just speculated, or something else. I mean, they did face some tough pitchers. Mackenzie Gore's a really nice pitcher. That's who they faced opening day. I understand that. So, I just think that once they get their feet under them, they're going to keep going. And I think the first 4 games were really about getting their feet under them.
Well, the lot of talk in the offseason was about what? The lineup configuration. And obviously, it hasn't really come into play a whole heck of a lot. Turner was out a couple of games here, but they faced right-handers in those games. So I guess you're going to see that. But the way Schwarber has kind of taken off here and the way he started his season, are you hesitant from removing him from that spot?
Well, I'm kind of hesitant to do the back and forth thing that the Phillies seem poised to do, where it might be Trey Turner against the lefties and Kyle Schwarber against the righties. I think if you set it, you leave it alone, or set it and forget it, as the old infomercial would say, right? So I'm a little puzzled that they would do such a thing. But, I said a couple years ago that the Phillies, when they put Schwarber back into the leadoff spot, they went back to what seemed to work. So I think the Phillies at their best the last several years had Kyle Schwarber leading off. And so I can't argue with that, even if everything around it doesn't seem to make sense to me. Now, I will add this. If you're getting good hitting from the likes of Max Kepler from the left side, if you're getting good hitting from Bryson Stott from the left side, then that lineup's a lot more balanced with Schwarber leading off. So if you're getting those lefty bats later in the lineup, I think you can get away with putting Schwarber first.
So Schwarber hitting in the leadoff spot the last couple games, and obviously he's been on fire, hit a couple home runs in that spot. You had Sosa in the 9-hole yesterday, and he's been kind of a spark plug for this team. A lot of people on Team Sosa, but Trey Turner should be back on Wednesday when the team is ready to go. Let's get into some mailbag questions here with Frank. We'll get into some more Phillies questions. If you have a Phillies question for Frank, you can send it 609-403-0973. Michael wants to know about Max Kepler. Why is he not in right field and Castellanos over in left field? A lot of times you see the left-handed player plays right field, the right-handed player plays left field.
Yeah, the Phillies actually signed Max Kepler knowing he had a really good track record as a right fielder. And the Phillies signed Nick Castellanos, planning to basically use him and Kyle Schwarber or some combination of the two in left field. And yet here we are. I think this kind of comes down to respect for Nick Castellanos at this point. The Phillies had to play him in right field once Bryce Harper got injured. That led to his Tommy John surgery. And so when they did that and Castellanos had the position every day, he really seemed to up his defensive game. It's by no means super stellar defense. in right field, but he showed that he could play very good passable defense in right field, and I think they'd rather not touch it. I mean, that's my gut instinct here when it comes to Nick Castellanos in right field, because I think early on in the Castellanos career, a topic of conversation was how he couldn't play defense, and he has gotten to the point where, yeah, he doesn't get to every ball, but he takes care of what he gets to, and he's very passable for a team to use him in right field. So Kepler coming in to play left field, that's the open position. He's going to be good at that if he was good at right field, I think. And so I think they just kind of rolled with it. I think there's going to be plenty of opportunities when you see that perhaps if Nick Castellanos gets a day off, or Nick Castellanos is a DH bumping Kyle Schwarber into left field. I think that's going to happen sometimes. And then you're going to see Kepler over and right. And I think they feel very comfortable with Kepler bouncing back and forth when necessary. And when asked, Kepler himself even seemed to say, well, it's not really that big a deal. And he was happy to do it. So I think for all that combined, you're going to see Castellanos there whenever he's the starting outfielder, and Kepler will slide over on those days that it's not Castellanos.
The Kepler addition was not met with huge fanfare, Frank. What do you think of him and his fit in this lineup early on? A lot of people, hey, he's a left-handed bat. They didn't need another left-handed bat. So far, he's even hitting higher in the lineup than Castellanos.
Yeah, I think with Kepler, he is left-handed, yes, but I think he's got experience hitting against lefties and righties. So I think you really don't worry about putting him in the lineup every single day. So they didn't sign him to be a platoon player. So those splits are kind of irrelevant if you're going to play every single day. But I think they got him because he is that contact bat. I think a lot of Phillies fans really like what they see of him already because he's making contact. Yeah, of course, he had a home run yesterday and he's had other hits, but he is that contact bat. I've heard not one, not two people, and I even had the thought myself, but kind of reminiscent of Raul Ibanez with the left-handed bat that's kind of smooth and makes contact on a regular basis. So I think that's a really nice addition. I thought that after last year, they really needed a left-handed bat that could play left field. Obviously, Juan Soto would have been the big target. They're not going to get Juan Soto, but he was a very, very nice, kind of under the radar, perhaps underrated pickup. And, on a 1-year deal, Kepler has got a lot to prove, trying to play for what's probably his final contract in baseball. Again, kind of bouncing back from an injury in Minnesota. So the things are all kind of aligning here that he could have a really good season and he could give the Phillies exactly what they needed. And as I was just saying a little while ago with the lineup construction, if you have a good left-handed bat at that point in the lineup, you're feeling a lot better about Kyle Schwarber leading off. It's not like you have Schwarber, righty, Harper, and then a dead zone from the left side. If he's hitting, you feel so much better about Kyle Schwarber leading off.
Yeah, and obviously Kepler, if they can produce the way that the Phillies have anticipated when they signed him, a lot of people were like, I don't know what this guy, he's been hurt. If he can produce the way he did in Minnesota a couple of those years, that would be a big addition to this lineup. And obviously it's very, very early. You got Brandon Marsh in center field. Are you willing to give Marsh more against lefties, or have you seen enough of the Marsh left-handed experiment?
Well, I wouldn't say I've seen enough, but I think he's got until June maybe to show that he can hit against lefties. And then if he hasn't, then I think the Phillies start looking for other options internally, maybe even in the form of Justin Crawford, or maybe they look outside for somebody that can sort of tide them over until they get to Justin Crawford, who, as we've talked about before, the Phillies have Crawford at AAA. He's knocking on the door. So I think the Phillies have their permanent center fielder one step away. Maybe ideally he's not up this year and taking that role, but having him there should put some pressure on Marsh. And I think the trade deadline, naturally, that's going to be the time when the Phillies recalibrate if they have to. So
one thing I noticed, people I don't think remember about Crawford is he also hits left-handed.
Yes, he does hit left-handed, but I guess a lot will remain to be seen. In the lower levels, he can hit everybody, but I think he needs to get up to those upper levels. I think that had a lot to do with why he's in AAA, because he's going to face a lot of pitchers at AAA that have major league experience. Now, they might not be major leaguers at the moment, but it's probably the next best thing that he could experience. So they have him at AAA. he's going to get a lot of at bats there, a lot of opportunities to play center and steal and steal bases. So he's kind of there, being watched very carefully to see what he could do for the major league team. But the Phillies could go out and get somebody to play center. Will they? I don't think they would ideally settle into a platoon again between Rojas and Marsh if Marsh didn't make it. I think it's time for them to win here. So I wouldn't be shocked if they had somebody from the outside. But as I said before, Marsh, if he can handle it, he's buying himself a job for later, because even if Crawford comes up, Max Kepler's just on that 1-year deal, and Marsh could write himself into the future of the Phillies outfield, whether it's in center or left field.
All right, the torpedo bat. Greg wants to know, will the Phillies have their own version of the new bat in the next few weeks? Is this a phase, or is this going to be the new wave in Major League Baseball, Frank?
Well, so just so people understand what this fancy torpedo bat is, so what they did was the company Victus, located really just outside of Philadelphia and King of Prussia, they did the research to see where players' bats made contact with the bat. And so while the bats are the same weight, they have essentially redistributed the barrel of the bat to be where that bat is making contact the most in that player's history. So Alec Boehm, he was the first Philly to debut with one. He hit a single yesterday. But it might not work for everybody. Bryson Stott, he was talking to NBC Sports Philadelphia, and he says, it's not something you can just go get. It has to be custom made. But he said, I hit all over the bat. So a bat like that is not going to work for me, essentially, is what Stott said. So for players that have a very predictable spot on the bat where they make contact, you can get that barrel of the bat to be in the right spot, custom made after lots of research if you want. So I think a lot of players might give it a shot, because especially the ones that the research shows is consistent on the bat. But pitchers like Matt Strom was not a fan of it. In fact, he told Anthony Sanfilippo of the website On Pattison that, hey, if pitchers mattered, they would have asked us about this. He is not a fan of that. So he believes it'll lead to more offense, and therefore, of course, as a pitcher, he does not like that idea. So is it a fluke that the New York Yankees hit 9 home runs the first time they used those bats? I don't know, but I think it definitely got people's attention, and you're going to be seeing people really focus on that. Will the law of averages take over, or is this going to be a thing? I don't know yet, but I think you're going to see some players give it a shot, and Alec Boehm is the one that's already doing so.
All right, let's go to the text board for some Phillies questions. This one's from Dan in EHT. Frank, should Ranger Suarez go to the bullpen? Will it be easier on his body when he returns?
That's a tough question. When you get those back injuries, that's usually a pretty big deal. I don't know that happens because you go long. In fact, maybe going longer or going more often in the bullpen might actually be more likely to exacerbate it. I don't know, but I just know that's not the type of injury you can take lightly. I think it's an injury that if your back is bad, you can't pitch like you should pitch. And we all saw Ranger Suarez lights out the first half of the season, and then once his back bothered him, that was the end of that. But and me too, Mike. At 43 years old, when I play softball, you could tell them my back only handles so much, and then I can't do it anymore, right? So that's an injury that you really have to be careful with. I actually probably would prefer that he has the off days and starts every 5th day than maybe trying to go out there any other day on no notice. Maybe he can get into a routine and manage that back a little bit better with the throw days and the starting days, but. I would say that that's a very, very big area of concern for Ranger Suarez and for the Phillies this season.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the interesting parts about this is, I guess, when did they say Painter? Sometime in July?
Yeah, they're saying July. So I mean, he will be an option down the road. I think if Suarez can't get himself healthy and Taijuan Walker isn't the answer, then maybe they will go to a 5-man rotation and Painter will be in it. And I think only if you get to that point where it's months down the road and he really can't grab that rotation spot, might they put him in the bullpen. But even then, they probably got to be careful with how they use him. Of course, we remember how electric he was in the bullpen just a few years ago, or even in 22 when he was coming in the bullpen in relief in some of those key games in the playoffs. So we know that Ranger Suarez can pitch wherever he's put, but I think the big thing here is just figure out what regimen works for his back and make sure he stays healthy.
Frank Close from 97.3 ESPN.com. If you have a Phillies question, send it in 609-403-0973. Jeff in Galloway on the text says his concern about the bats is the exit velo is faster than the regular bats. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but is that something that the league – I guess they're going to monitor all this. They're not saying that the bats are illegal. They're just saying the weight that's the interesting – I've never actually held one. I don't know if the weight feels different. Like, is it a weird feeling that the barrel is more in the middle of the bat than the top of the bat? So then essentially, if you hit the ball at the top part of the bat, that ball's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah, this is going to be worthy of study, I think. I mean, yeah, as you said, it's not an illegal bat. It is, the weight is the same, so I don't know if it feels different, the distribution of it, even though the barrel is distributed a little bit differently. I guess I also have not held one. Maybe I should. Maybe I take a stop at King of Prussia on my way home from work, and check it out. But yeah, I think this has to be studied, and if they find out the exit velocity is much higher, that could be dangerous. Even, I don't know. I haven't seen the early numbers, but let's face it, though, a lot of those New York Yankees are power hitters, so. I think you need a larger body from which to study here and see what differences is actually making.
Yeah, I know. We got Cole from LBI. He said that I don't even play hardball anymore, but I bought a C15 torpedo bat from Marucci to see what these babies are all about. So maybe we would have to just run out to the store. Can I go to my local Dick's and pick one up over there?
Dick's does sell Victus bats. I don't know if they have any torpedo bats in stock, but I do know that they do have Victus bats. And by the way, you might remember from spring training, those pencil bats, for example, Victus made those. Victus is kind of becoming one of the big names in bats in particular.
Andrew in Summers Point says, Frank, I love Sosa whenever he gets a chance to play. If he keeps playing as well as he does, will he ever get a shot to be a full-time guy? And then here we go, and make Turner trade bait.
I think if he's going to start anywhere in this Phillies team, it would be center field. And they didn't really do a whole lot of outfield this spring training. But, I think if he does fight his way and play his way into starting every day, it's because, related to our early conversation, they can't get anything out of center field. Now, I was surprised they didn't use him in center field. You might remember they even used Rodolfo Castro in center field. You saw Sosa in the corners a little bit, but they kind of backed off on the outfield thing, it seemed, during spring training for Sosa. But no, I don't see a clear path to him getting a starting position in the infield.
You're right. I don't understand that. You're playing spring games. You just say, go out there and play 9 innings every day. Like, go out there and play 5 innings, 4 innings, 9 innings, 7 innings. I mean, it's a spring training game. Who cares if he makes a mistake? Get him and then ask him, do you feel comfortable out there?
And a lot of middle infielders have transitioned to center field. So
sure, listen,
Samuel back in the day.
You're a big league player. Most of these guys can play almost any position you ask them to. They might not be as good at third as they are at short, or at second as they are at short, or in left as they are in center. But if you're a major league caliber player, you're telling me he can't shag a fly ball?
Well, I think shagging the fly ball is not the worry. I think it would be on the more complicated plays, right? So yeah, I was a little surprised they didn't.
You gain confidence by being out there more. The fact that you say, how many innings did he play in the outfield in the spring? 4?
Yeah, it was so negligible. I barely remember him doing it, to be honest with you. But I remember Rodolfo Castro playing more center field than Sosa playing any other outfield.
A couple years ago, Frank, you'll remember this. They said Cody Ashley, they wanted to move him to the outfield. Then spring training came, and they didn't play him in the outfield at all. Well, then they sent him to the minors to go learn how to play the outfield in the middle of the season. It's like you had all of spring training to hit the guy fly balls. I mean, for God's sakes, it's not rocket science. Stick a guy out there, hit him 500 fly balls a day, and he'll start to feel more comfortable.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm really surprised Max Kepler didn't get some time in center field for that reason, because if you feel better about a Sosa in left field, it gives you more options. But the Phillies did not opt to do that this spring training, and it's kind of late to be doing that now. But
all right, it looks like a question on the X platform from SA6394. When will the Phillies settle in on a 9th inning guy? Are we going through this again? Where yesterday it looked like they were going to go to Romano, but it was not a save situation. We've seen a couple different options here. So do the Phillies have a closer?
They do. And it actually is whichever day it is and whichever batters are in the opposing lineup. Rob Thompson will put Jose Alvarado in the 8th and or ninth, and Jordan Romano will be the opposite way too. They're going to look at the matchups coming up, and they're going to line it up so that the last 6 outs are among those two pitchers. So it's not a guy, but it is those two guys. I think that they're going to be the lefty righty duo that gets the big outs at the end of the game. If you're talking about someone who's going to come in and accumulate saves, we've seen John Mar Gomez do that, right? Who saved 36 or 37 games in 2016 when it didn't matter. Anybody can rack up saves, but here he's being strategic. This is how Rob Thompson has managed bullpens, including 2022 when the Phillies rode Alvarado and Dominguez to the World Series. He's going to get the best possible matchups out there. And so far, what we've seen is Alvarado comes in for the tough lefties, like you saw him go in there to face Ryan McMahon against the Rockies yesterday in the 8th. Remember, the Phillies did not have that big a lead yet when all that got set up. So the Phillies went into the 8th yesterday afternoon. Alvarado was coming in for the lefty McMahon, and probably to get Michael Toglia, the switch hitter, from make him hit from the right side. He got those big outs, and then it was on to Romano for the 9th. Now they stuck with Romano, even though the Phillies scored some more runs. But I think that shows where that's going to lie. So if the tough righties are in the 8th, you'll see Romano there, and the tough lefties would be in the 9th. Then you go Alvarado. So I think the Phillies philosophically believe that's the best chance to get not just those 3 outs, to get the last 6 outs. And really, both players have a history of being able to do that.
Yeah, and I guess the big thing is, to start this season, you have a much better – well, do you have a much better, I should say, Frank, confidence in Alvarado?
Absolutely. I went into this offseason really not knowing what he was. Let's face it, last year he kind of lost his way, and he was so unpredictable. They couldn't use him in key situations in the playoffs that, quite frankly, might have changed the outcome of some of those playoff games. So, but spring training, he's locked in. It looks like physically he's in great shape. Did come in with losing some weight and joking about it too, about what he ate. Even his personal life, his family was there. His family was all in spring training. He had a large number of family there. So, and I got to talk to some of his family while they were there. And, everybody seems happy. He seems locked in. He's happy. He's throwing the ball well. I think he's going to have a really big season for this Phillies team.
All right, Frank Close's Phillies Mailbag every Tuesday right here on the Sports Bash. And you can always text in your questions during the segment, 609-403-0973. And, of course, the Phillies off tonight. You'll have to find something on television to watch. But they should be back on their normal schedule. They got a big stretch of games coming up. They finished the series with the Rockies. And then the Dodgers are in town this weekend. Big one early at Citizens Bank Park. All right, Frank, we'll talk to you, pal.
Thank you, Mike.
All right, Frank Close, everybody, 97.3 ESPN.com, our Phillies insider for years, of course, here on the Sports Bash, and his Phillies Mailbag today, this hour, brought to you by Broadlee's Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning, your trusted source for heating, plumbing, service, and installation for generations. 609-390-3907. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash, and we have so much more to go, including today's football at 4, where we'll take a look at the owners' meetings and what they're saying about the tush push. Yes, the tush push has been a huge topic of conversation down there. We'll give you the latest on that. And some new rules. One that the Eagles proposed got passed. You'll hear about that coming up with Adam Kaplan in about 35 minutes from now on the Sports Bash. Knicks Nuggets are on the way as well. And I got details on the Eagles draft party and when you can enter for the first time. That's all coming up this hour on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. All right, 3:30 Sports Bash. We're getting close to the draft. Our Eagles draft party Thursday, April 24th will be live at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. We'll have tickets for an Eagles club box seats to a home game this year, an overnight stay at Ocean Casino Resort, other great prizes. Listen for your first chance to enter Thursday morning during Unsportsmanlike between 6 and 9, and your first chance on the Sports Bash Thursday afternoon in the 2 o'clock hour. Is Rick Saratella drinking a beer? Is that what's going on over there? I'm a little jealous right now. He joins us now on the Sports Bash. I caught that, man. I could see you in the green room over there. Were you just throwing down a brewski, it looked like there?
Well, it's 5 p.m. here, Mikey.
Is that what's going on?
It's 5 p.m. here in the Saratella household, okay?
Remember, you're on video. I can see you.
Salute. The draft mug is in full effect.
The draft mug is here. Rick Saratella, NFL Draft Bible, all access right now on the Sports Bash. All right, let's what are we hearing in your mind these last, we're getting ready. Now we're in the month of April. This is the nitty-gritty here. We're getting on that stretch run here. These teams at the top. Let's start with Tennessee and what you're getting. Now the owners meeting. You're starting to get a little stuff here.
Yeah.
What you're hearing from Tennessee, give me the vibes around them for you.
Well, I think coming out of the Cam Ward Pro Day and into these owner meetings, you're kind of getting the sense it's pretty much a done deal. It's going to be Cam Ward. It'd be a big surprise. I think it'd be a shock if it wasn't Cam Ward. So I do believe that Cam Ward is going to be the next quarterback of the Tennessee Titans. They're going to do their due diligence. Shedeur Sanders has his pro day here at April 4th, right? And so, they'll have him in for a private workout as well. But I think it's just a formality that Cam Ward is going to be that number one pick.
Yeah, so Tennessee, I mean, obviously, you take a look at they don't really. I don't know. Are they done with Will Levis? Are they? Is that your Cam Ward would say they're done with the Levis experiment? I guess.
Yeah, I mean, go eat your mayonnaise and coffee and banana peels and whatever else it is you do. Will Levis, take that back somewhere else. But I mean, anybody who watched Will Levis last year, I can't imagine anyone being excited about entering the season with Will Levis as your starting quarterback. I think he just needs to learn how to not turn the ball over, maybe stick his nose in the playbook and get off of TikTok.
All right. So, look, you get 2 years in this league, it feels like, right? After 2, you basically turn into a journeyman. Right?
Yeah, if you're lucky. Josh Rosen, there's been some others, one and done, All
right. So, if Cleveland goes Ward, I know we talked a little bit about this last week, but, I mean, if Tennessee goes Ward, where realistically is Cleveland? They come out today. They say they took a swing and a miss with the Deshaun Watson. They admitted that today. Do they go back down the quarterback road? Does that make sense in this draft for you?
I think they're going to go a different route, Mike, because we talked about it last week. 5 quarterbacks in the first round since 1999, the infamous Tim Couch draft, and they've struck out every time. So, it's funny, these pictures surfaced of Kirk Cousins in the bowling alley last week in Cleveland, Ohio. And now suddenly there's some talk now that, he's willing to trade he's willing to waive his no trade clause out of Atlanta. It would make a lot of sense for him to go to Cleveland. And, they've all but moved on from Deshaun Watson. So I think that it's now pointing towards teaming up Myles Garrett with Abdul Carter out of Penn State, creating that dynamic duo at the bookend. And for whatever this is worth, I don't think Abdul Carter is the cleanest prospect. He did have a foot injury that might have needed a screw. He didn't work out at Pro Day last week because of a shoulder. And you got to remember, I've been following these guys. Last spring, the mainstream media maybe has forgotten, but he did pull a guy out of a truck, yanked him down, broke his rib, got arrested, was thrown out of his first collegiate game for targeting. So, when you're talking about clean, Travis Hunter is clean. Abdul Carter, not so much, but I understand the logic. Myles Garrett swinging helmets at Mason Rudolph. I remember that too. So you want your defensive lineman to be a little loose screwed. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. When I'm going after the quarterback, it's one thing the Giants don't have. Well, do they? They have 3 quarterbacks now, but does that preclude them if you were making this pick at number 3 to go
No,
Sanders?
listen, I think Joe Shane and Brian Daboll have been whining and dining Shador Sanders. I think it's a dream scenario. And I think they've kind of played it cool at the owners' meetings because a lot of the beat reporters came away from the Joe Shane press conference saying, oh, well, I think they might be out of the market for a quarterback at number 3. And it's like, dude, it's smokescreen season. This is what they do, right? They want to throw you off the mark, throw you off the path. I think they're all in on Shador Sanders. Russell Wilson's quarterback is $10 million base, up to 21 incentives. Last time I checked, that's not really starting quarterback money, or it's not marquee starting quarterback type of money. So I do think they are in the market for Shador Sanders, but there is some allure with Travis Hunter as well.
No doubt about it. All right, let's go to a very intriguing team this offseason. Rick Saratella, NFL Draft Bibles with us. We're kind of taking a look at the top half of the draft as we flip the calendar to April.
Yeah.
Man, this team, New England, has been pretty interesting this offseason. They went out and got Diggs. They beefed up some defense. Obviously, Milton Williams, they spent $26 million there. What do the Patriots need in this spot right here?
Well, they need a lot. They had the most money in free agency, so they didn't make really like a lot of big splashes. They did get Milton Williams, they did get Harold Landry, but Stephon Diggs, is he on the back nine? I don't know. I think the New England Patriots need to draft the best player available. I think they might draft the best offensive tackle available because they want to protect their new asset, which is Drake May. And I understand the logic to that, Mike, and Mike Vrabel being a former offensive lineman. But I just think, like, when you're a team picking at the top of the draft, and for very good reason, for multiple seasons, you need to get, you can't really afford to bypass like a Travis Hunter for a Will Campbell or Armin Membo. I think that would be a travesty.
They would be very interesting. I think New England's going to be fun on draft day, especially what if Travis Hunter falls to that spot? You see any chance of that happening? You see 2 quarterbacks go and someone takes Carter in the top 3.
I do. I think the scenario just unfolded, right? Like if Cam Ward goes 1, Abdul Carter 2, Shador Sanders 3, it's like, how do you bypass on the best player in the National Football League draft this year? That is Travis Hunter. It would be crazy.
All right, Jacksonville, obviously a new regime there. I'm kind of intrigued by which direction you think this team will go. They have their quarterback. They think they paid the guy. They have signed so many free agents. The owner came out last year and said, this is the best team we've ever had. They disappointed. They fired Doug Peterson. So now where are they?
Well, they brought in Liam Cohen. He's an offensive-minded coach. I could see them. They just lost Cam Robinson, I think, in free agency. I could see them go offensive tackle as well. They do need a wide receiver. I think it's a little bit too rich for any of these wideouts to be taken at number 5. Could they shock us with a Mykel Williams, for example? Like they did it with Trayvon Walker. They were all over that Georgia young man. When you project upside, Mykel Williams, he's been kind of compared to a Trayvon Walker. What if you pair those two up? I mean, I think Jacksonville's, again, one of those teams that needs everything. So if a Travis Hunter or if an Abdul Carter slides to them, they're going to do cartwheels up to the podium. But I think they got to protect Trevor Lawrence. He's coming off an injury. You got to keep him upright. I think it's going to be offensive tackle, Will Campbell, Armin Membo. Those are the 2 likely candidates there.
All right, Rick Saratella, NFL Draft Bible, looking through the top 10 here. Let's go to Vegas. A lot of people have been thinking Genty in this spot here. We talked about that last week. Pete Carroll, Chip Kelly, they want to run the ball, but do they go off script in your mind?
I had Genty penciled in here for like most of the mock draft season in my mock drafts, and I just, I don't want to say I soured on Genty because Genty's the top running back on my big board, Mike. There's no doubt about it. I just wonder, like, can I get another quality running back later in the draft? Do I have to take Genty at 6? Am I better off dropping down and waiting? Now, Las Vegas, they can alleviate some of the pressure off the quarterback there, which I think would be a smart move. Hand the rock to Genty, run the ball. Pete Carroll's had a lot of success doing that. That could be his Marshawn Lynch and Ashton Genty. So I like the move. I could see it happening. And right now, if you look at the Vegas odds, that's the odds-on favorite for the Raiders pick right now.
Yeah, I know they're going to be an interesting team with Pete Carroll and Tom Brady's input as well. All right, let's go, Rick. Let's look at the Jets here. This is a team that's, I guess thinks they got their quarterback in free agency. Justin Fields is probably not a quarterback for them to take here, so it seems that Fields would be okay. So the Jets they've drafted pretty well the last couple of years. They do have some talent from the draft. It just hasn't worked out on the field.
Yeah, I think the offensive line has kind of been in flux year after year. It's been kind of a turnstile like the New York City subway for the New York Jets. So I think they need stability up front. Maybe Membo and Campbell are off the board at this point. So a guy that I like, Kevin Banks, is my number 1 rated offensive tackle out of Texas. I think he would be a great fit in New York. Keep the Justin Fields a little bit protected there. And if they don't, well then, hey, they've gone on the defensive side of the ball. Could James Pierce Jr. be selected here and pair him with that up-and-coming edge rusher that they have? They need to get after the quarterback. They need to protect the quarterback, so probably tackle or pass rusher for the Jets.
All right, let's go to Carolina. New regime there as well. You've got this team needs a lot. They started to play well finally down the stretch there, the pick of quarterback 2 years ago. Now you got the quarterback they think, I guess. And look, we keep talking about quarterbacks as if is there another quarterback that you're keeping an eye on in this area of the draft?
Well, for me, I like Jalen Milroe as the 3rd-rated quarterback, but I do think Jackson Dart could get some consideration in the top 10. I think that's a possibility. These quarterbacks are going to get pushed up the board. 21, Pittsburgh is another potential quarterback destination. I don't think Carolina is going to go there. I think they're going to ride out this Bryce Young experiment one more season. Mike, how about getting him a security blanket underneath and Tyler Warren from Penn State? Like, hey, it's not open downfield. Hey, I got 2 seconds to get rid of the ball. Hey, let me get the ball in the hands of Tyler Warren. You saw it at Penn State. This guy can do in motion. He can do inline. He can do the slot. He can line up outside. He can line up in the backfield, fullback, H-back, whatever you want, quarterback, wildcat. Give me some Tyler Warren to alleviate some of the pressure off of that Bryce Young.
Yeah, I agree. I think they give him another shot there, and I like giving him a little weapon as well. They need a lot of help, though. How about New Orleans? Let's go to number 9 in the draft. Obviously, a new regime there as well. Kellen Moore is in there. I don't know, quarterback spot. Is he happy with the quarterback he has? They got a lot of holes on that team.
Yeah, this could be a quarterback spot. This could be a Jackson Dart destination. I do think they're going to have to go defensive line. Cam Jordan is going to probably be a cap casualty there. I don't think they can keep him on board. So how about replacing him with a Mason Graham out of Michigan? He's kind of been flying under the radar a little bit. Didn't work out at the combine. Didn't work out at the pro day. Did limited positional work there. But Mason Graham, he's been a top 10 consideration all season long. You plug him in. You part ways with Cam Jordan. Makes a lot of sense.
All right, let's finish up today with number 10, which is the Bears. And obviously, they drafted their quarterback last year. They went out and got 2 guards. They have a new coach. It's 3rd team in a row with the new regime here. But do they need to add another weapon for Caleb Williams, or do they have to give him some more protection up front? Where are you going here?
Yeah, the Bears. If Gentry doesn't go to the Raiders, how about to the Bears with Caleb Williams? And I thought they added a lot of ammunition with Odunze. They brought in some free agent wide receivers. They addressed it in the draft. I think, and Chicago's done a great job building in the trenches on the offensive side of the ball. We just talked about Mason Graham. Here's a dark horse candidate for the top 10, Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss. Some people like him even more than Mason Graham. Comes in a little bit lighter at 300 pounds. But when you talk about explosiveness, get off, quickness, the ability to disrupt from the interior of the defensive line, Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss could be a great candidate there.
Which is funny because the mock draft season, a lot of Walter Nolan's fallen all the way down to 32 for Howie Roseman. Some character concerns for him. But if he fell down that far, that means you're getting another really high-quality player. Maybe not a high-quality person, but the Eagles have a way of fixing those up. Rick Saratella at NFL Draft Bible. Check him out over there. And, of course, All Access. He's got a lot of updates. You and Baldy doing a lot of stuff. Tell the people where they can find you and Baldy and everybody, All Access NFL Draft Bible.
Yeah, allaccessfootball.com. We got the NFL Draft Bible publication coming out mid-April, just taking the break. We've been starting since 3 a.m. Now, what is it, 3 p.m.? So we've been on the grind, burning the midnight oil. We're going to have live draft programming content daily. Once I get that Draft Bible publication off my plate, we'll be going live each and every single day, counting you down to the NFL Draft. We'll be live with our pre- and post-game coverage, and we'll have live pick-by-pick analysis. So it's all there, allaccessfootball.com, NFL Draft Bible, and greatly appreciate you, Mike.
Absolutely. Go finish your beer.
Salute.
All right, there's the Rick Saratella NFL Draft Bible, All Access. They do a great job. Him and Baldy have putting out a lot of draft content this draft season to get you ready for the NFL Draft. Each week on these Tuesdays with Rick, we went through the top 10. Next week, we'll go 11 through 20. The following week, we'll go 21 through 32. And then the following week, we will be on draft day. We'll have Rick back on draft day to kind of give us the last insights and analysis for the Eagles and that pick. And who knows, if they move up, move back, we will have it for you right here on 97.3 ESPN. Your home for this year's NFL Draft and the draft party. We'll give you more details on that coming up on the other side. Stick around if you want to be a part of this year's draft party. I got the details coming up next. But first, I want to tell you about my friends at Game Day Men's Health in Egg Harbor Township. We've been telling you about this. And as we get older, guys, it's getting tougher and tougher. I've been telling you, I got this stupid tennis elbow. That thing is killing me. Well, the people at Game Day Men's Health, they can take care of that for you. They got the only machine in the area that works on stuff like that to help those creaky joints get back in action. 609-365-7088. 609-365-7088. They've got so many unique things over there that you just walk in for 15 minutes for a consultation, an on-site lab. You get your testosterone levels. Easy to do. Comfy environment, flat screen TVs, very nice atmosphere, and just have a conversation. Hey, I'm getting older. These are the things that are happening to me. How can you help me? That's my friends over at GameDayMen'sHealth.com. Check them out there. Tell Mike Gill sent you for a special offer. All right, when we come back, I got details on this year's Eagles draft party, and we got football at 4 on the way. The Eagles put in a new rule, and it got passed. The details on that coming up. All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Mike Gill with you till 6 tonight. Adam Kaplan has football at 4 coming up in 7 minutes from now. Don't forget this year's draft party. We'll be live at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. We'll have more details on where at Ocean we'll be for the show, but we do have these details. We'll have a pair of tickets to an Eagles home game, club box seats. The winner will get to sit club box, pair of tickets, Eagles game this year at Lincoln Financial Field. Also, we'll have great Ocean prizes, overnight stays, all sorts of stuff like that. We're putting all that together, getting all the details put together, but Ocean is on board for another year for the draft party this year. We did it there last year at Top Golf. That place was awesome last year. We packed the place, by the way. That was a big place, and we packed that joint. We hope to have more fun this year, and we're going to start registering people. Your first chance to enter will be Thursday morning in the 6 o'clock hour, 6 to 9. You'll have 3 chances during Unsportsmanlike, and then 4 more chances during the Sports Bash, and 1 chance during game night with Josh, of course, right here on 97.3 ESPN. So be listening starting Thursday morning in the 6 o'clock hour, 6 a.m. hour, for your first cue to call, and that will be this Thursday. And then we'll give you bonus chances on the Sports Bash throughout the day. Listen for the Eagles draft party, cue to call. It all starts Thursday. We'll be live at Ocean Casino Resort, club box Eagles tickets. All right, looking forward to that. When we come back, the Eagles proposed a new rule, and it passed. All that and more coming up. Football at 4 is next. Nick Sirianni today on the tush push, which is a big topic of conversation, but where does it stand? This is Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Adam Kaplan from the Inside the Birds podcast. He is back to tell us all that happened at the owners' meetings today, how the game might look a little different, and one rule that the Eagles proposed that got passed and how that will change the game a little bit this year, possibly. Let's bring in Adam Kaplan from the Inside the Birds podcast, who joins us right now on the Sports Bash. What's up, Adam?
Mike, yeah, the meetings they're just about done. The owners are actually starting to leave. The way it works is, and this one this year is at the Breakers in West Palm Beach, Florida. So basically what happens is they have their votes, which they had today. We'll get into that for a second. Jeffrey Lurie, by the way, is speaking now, the Eagles owner, separately with the media. But the commissioner now will have his final press conference. That actually ends everything. And then what happens is a lot of owners stay the night and then they leave. Mass exodus of limousines tomorrow morning. But the owners' meetings are done. It's shorter. It used to be 3 days. Now it's really only 2.
All right, Adam. So West Palm is the place, and you've got all the details. Let's get the big one for the Eagles, the tush push play. Where does that stand? That one seemed to be one that was going back and forth and gained a lot of steam and momentum over the last 48 hours. Where does it stand today?
Yeah, Mike, it's more than 48. Let me, and we'll get to that because we'll conclude with what you just brought up. But I want to go back to the combine. So I think I was on with you. In fact, I know I was from the combine, and I did a bunch of interviews from there. And what I was told then was there was zero momentum to block the push play for several reasons. A, and it's what we knew already. League made it clear privately and on the record that there's no injury data that would suggest that it's not a safe play, that it's any worse than any other play. So that is number one, right? Now, the other one is it really a football play? Mike, there are two things here, okay? So let's move this forward here. Why now? This actually started last week, so give you a little bit of an insight. At every owners' meetings, families, the head coach, GM, owner, team president, a lot of business people for a club, they will travel. This is the one year they get together. The owners' meetings are generally on a warm climate, okay? This one's in Florida. Sometimes it's at the Biltmore in Phoenix. Sometimes it's in California. Dana Point, you might remember many years ago, between Los Angeles and San Diego, which, by the way, was Andy Reid's idea because he's from that area. So anyway, the families will get there. Actually, the meetings start on Sunday. They might get there the Thursday. So what happens is if there's something big that's going to be voted on, and whether it's controversial like this one, or it's one that has a lot of interest around the league with clubs and coaches and general managers, there's going to be some lobbying that goes on. That's my sense, Mike, is that there was some lobbying last week. Now, whether it was the Packers who are clearly against it, the Rams, Sean McVay, it's been speculated, I guess, that he actually was on the record. So we don't have to say that. He actually was on the record saying that he's not exactly for it. So there've been a lot of people on the fence, I could tell you. And then the other thing is, Mike, and let's call it like it is, there's absolutely what we call competitive jealousy. I can't speak for the Packers here. It's just I find this interesting that the Eagles, as you know, beat them twice last season. First game of the season in Brazil, and then in the playoffs. Look at how the Eagles have owned the Rams for a long time here. They may deny this, but there are some people around the league think there's some jealousy with other teams. And the Bills, it's interesting. They run the play, but yet the double standard of saying, well, Sean McDermott, the former Eagles defense coordinator, who's the Bills head coach, Mike, he went on record. Though they run it, he has issues with it. It's just really it's been a fascinating discussion, Mike. It's got way bigger. It died for a while. Now it's come to the forefront. But so why do they table it? because I think you just set this up well. Coaches and front office executives are absolutely split on this thing. It would not have gotten 24 votes. You need 24 out of 32 owners to pass it, to pass something, and that's what they just haven't had enough. It's going to get voted down. I mean, it's going to get knocked out. It's going to happen someday. Whether it's in May, the last time you could vote for it would be on May. It's been tabled to the May meeting. Once there is no other meeting before the season starts, there is one in December, but that you couldn't vote there anyway. There is no voting, and it's completely different. It's a different business one in December. So, Mike, to finish this off, it definitely got a lot of steam. The last, I'm going to say, 4 to 6 days, a little bit more than I probably expected. And then when I heard Sunday that there's going to be a real push for this thing, I was like, wow, that's well, not what I thought when I was at because I can't tell you everything I was told at the combine, but one high-ranking league official told me this thing is dead, no chance. No one really. There weren't a lot of people passionate about it, but man, here's what I know, Mike. You know this in business. When you get in front of people face to face, things can change.
No doubt about it. And Adam, I honestly think they are pitching this wrong. They're pitching it as a safety issue. To me, you're pitching the competition committee. It's a competitive advantage issue. That's the problem. That's what they should be. That's what they should be pushing, not the injury element where there's no data.
Sure.
You say, hey, you got 3 players pushing a guy forward. My linebacker can't take the nose tackle and push him through the center. That's not allowed.
Correct. And Mike, I'm going to give you another thing that this league official gave me. He said, you know what? You don't know this because you're either at the game but you can't see it, or you're watching on television. He goes, look, when we try to officiate this play, we don't always see this. They can't. It depends where the officials are lined up. They can't always see a couple of people pushing Jalen Hurts. Believe it or not, I found it hard to believe it. They would know more than I would. You have to be lined up correctly if you're an official, by the way. Again, people don't know this, but I do remember that conversation at the Combine. So it is really fascinating. It is really fascinating. And it is a very passionate topic, Mike, way more passionate than I thought with general managers and head coaches. And it's funny, Kevin Stefanski, who the Browns head coach, who's, by the way, you're from the Philadelphia area, Kevin went on the record a couple months ago. Might have been at the Combine, I don't know, because the Eagles played the Browns last season in Philly. I remember him distinctly, surprisingly, because he's kind of keeps stuff to the vest. He said no problem. He goes, why should we penalize a team for doing a good job? And how about John Harbaugh, a former Eagles special teams coach, DB's coach, his final year in Philly? He's for it. He's like, hey, it's a good play. They do a good job with it. He had no problem with it. So, again, Mike, if you polled the 31 other teams, I mean, it seems like they're split.
And by the way, you just mentioned Stefanski. He confirmed today that the Eagles and the Browns will have a joint practice for the 3rd time. So we know we have that somewhere down the road as well.
It'll be here, too. It'll be here, this one.
All right, let's get into a couple things from the highlights of Nick Sirianni's media outing. And he spoke about Dallas Goedert. I thought he was somewhat, clear, and he said, look, we want him, but, he was pretty clear that this might not be a chance. There is a possibility he doesn't come back.
Mike, it was fascinating because he starts off well. He's still on the team. So, as soon as it doesn't have to be the Eagles. Anytime a coach or a GM is asked a question about a player's future, when he says, well, he's still on the team, you always scratch your head. Like, okay, well, we see where this might be going. So, yeah, obviously he would love him to stay. They're a better team with him. I know the record without Goddard's 8-1, but folks, you don't aspire to. Well, you know what? We're 8-1 without him, so we're good. No, you're not good. You have a lot of backup tight ends now. They've kind of fortified the backup group. It's a much better backup group now, but they don't have a starter if Goddard's moved. So now I would also tell you, Mike, and just people to understand. If Goddard's on the team, I don't do percentages ever. I would just tell you, in our reporting on this one, we know they're trying to move him. They've been trying to move him. They gave him permission to seek a trade. If for some reason he's back, that should not stop them from drafting a tight end early. Why? Because the draft is always about the future. It's not really about this season. You got to look towards the future at that position. With Goddard's injury history, that's part of why they're looking to move him. They really have to solve this issue, just like they did in 2018 when they drafted him, and then Zach Ertz knew over time, he was on borrowed time, was going to have to be moved at some point. But you know what? Zach wasn't traded till Sirianni's first year in 2021.
Yeah, in the middle of at the trade deadline. So he actually started the season here as well. So that could be a possibility. We'll see.
Yep. You never know.
What about Cooper DeJean? A lot of murmurs about what happens with him. Do they move him to the outside? Do they keep him in his spot? What did Nick Sirianni offer on his position?
Yeah, I thought Nick of the recent years was more revealing. You have to read into, if you really want to get information with head coaches at these breakfasts. This one, the NFC breakfast, was today, Tuesday, and the AFC was on Monday. And if you really want to get good information, you really have to listen or watch. And I would say that he talked about Cooper DeJean's versatility. Well, cornerbacks, okay, I'm just using what Vic Fangio says. A nickel is a nickel. A corner is an outside player, okay? Not that Cooper can't do it. I mean, they drafted him to be a corner, and because he was hurt when they got him, and he wasn't ready for the start of the season. They started him at nickel, and he was dynamic. So our reporting on this, a couple of months ago was that they're probably going to keep him a nickel this season. Not definite, but that's where they're leaning. I just found it interesting. He basically said, I'm paraphrasing. I don't have the exact words in front of me. Just looking at his body language, it sure seems like they want to keep him at nickel. Now, Mike, one thing I would add, let's understand this. We haven't had the draft yet. If they draft a corner, which would be surprising in the first round, yes, they need a cornerback for the future, but if they drafted a corner in the first round, they'd be telling where Cooper DeJean for 2 or 3 years at least will be lining up. So that would tell you that, because you don't need 3 starting outside corners. It doesn't work like that. So that was kind of interesting. I again, based on what Nick said, sure sounds like they're leaning that way, but there's nothing official yet.
All right, we got a couple more minutes here with Adam Kaplan on the owners' meetings today. Last year, the 1-year deals. This is something they've done a lot. What did Nick have to say about this year's group?
It's funny because I guess he would know that he's not like a contract expert, but the Eagles have done at least 8 1-year deals, and it was funny. Like, he knew this, and he goes, "Look, we did very well." Zach Bond obviously doesn't get any better than that. They did well with some 1-year deals last year. The best one in maybe one of the best 1-year deals in team history is Zach Bond's 1-year deal, and they've got a bunch of them. We, by the way, on our platform on Inside the Birds, we broke down the offensive ones earlier this week, and tomorrow you'll hear us break down all the defensive ones. And we give you on Patreon, the breakdown of what they actually look like in just the complete breakdown. And by the way, for Patreon tonight, ask Greg Cosell. Greg is back with us live for our Tier 3 members, so you could get that at patreon.com/InsideTheBirds. Looking forward to doing that. Barrett Brooks with us tomorrow night, by the way, on Patreon.
Nice.
Jeff, we're going for it, man, for the draft. We've got Greg 5 times live on Patreon, so check that out. But to finish this off, Mike, it was one of Sirianni's that I could remember better press conferences, and as we've always said, the more Nick talks, the better it is, because sometimes you don't want to give any information on it. He's very short, but when you get him elaborating on stuff, he definitely blabs stuff. It's just kind of comical. Do you remember his first year, Mike, when he didn't know any better? He gave out so much information the first year, then someone got in his ear. I don't know who did, and then he started shutting us down.
Hey, before we roll, real quick, Avery Williams, they brought him in here too. Does he have a bigger role in mind for him? Because a lot of people just say, all right, he's just a return special teams guy.
This surprised me. I don't know what happened here. I don't know what. This is another one where the more he talked, the more information he gave out. So Avery Williams is a corner in college at Boise State, right? He got moved to running back with the Falcons. Unfortunately, tore his ACL a couple years ago. He was actually an exceptional punt returner in college. So basically, he's been a coverage special teams player. like a number 3 running back, but he hasn't carried the ball in a number of years. But Nick basically said, we see a role in offense for him. He wouldn't say what that is, but he kept talking about it. Well, Mike, let's face it. Barkley's a starter. If Dillon's healthy, he should be the 2. Shipley's a 3, but he's got some juice. Well, you don't need 4 running backs. So clearly, other than special teams, Mike, and he didn't really he touched briefly, on the special teams, but he talked about it for a couple of minutes. So to me, Mike, maybe Kevin Patullo and Nick see something, maybe something outside of formation. Not a slot receiver, but gadget, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
just something different. It got me thinking so much. I thought this, as you said, Mike, it kind of just a very small role. Not that a change-up running back would be a big role, but I'm so interested in this thing. When I go to OTAs, Mike, I'm like, what are we looking at here? I'm curious to see what it looks like.
All right, Adam Kaplan, Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast as the offseason continues. And we are in draft season. We are in draft month, and we'll have plenty on the draft still to come. All right, Adam, appreciate it, pal.
Thank you.
All right, Adam Kaplan, everybody here from Inside the Birds and the Inside the Birds podcast, which, of course, you can get on all podcasting platforms. Just search Inside the Birds and subscribe. All right, we got plenty more, including the new rules that have been laid down. He talked about the tush push. The tush push is out right now, or tabled right now, I should say. They did not vote on the tush push. That will come back up in May when they have their next round of meetings. That is May 20th and the 21st. So according to some reports, as we just talked to with Adam, they're going to push that back. The owners discussed the tush-push play for more than a half an hour, according to reports. And the chairman of the committee, who is Rich McKay, he said they're going to table this vote until May. So what came from that apparently is, now they've admitted that there's no current safety concerns, which I've said, look, if you don't want the tush-push, I think they're presenting it wrong. Like if I'm against the tush push, I'm saying I'm against the tush push because you can physically push a guy forward, and I think that's a competitive advantage for the offense that the defense doesn't have. So according to reports, instead of banning the play, they are researching whether to outlaw pushing or pulling the player. The offense is allowed to push something the defense is not allowed to do. And that was from Rich McKay. So they're talking about the possibility of saying, okay, defensive players cannot push or pull, and now offensive players are not going to be able to push or pull, which means you would not be able to physically kind of push the quarterback forward. And that has been the big thing for me. Listen, I got somebody on the text board, AJ in Courthouse, says, Mike, you've indicated your only problem with the tush push is that it creates an unfair advantage for the offense. That's it. So if that's the case, why don't you start advocating they change the rule for the defense to do something similar to fairly contest the play? Stop explaining to the world why the play is unfair for the offense and therefore should be banned. Come on, Mike, it's a legitimate play the Eagles execute better than anyone. You keep telling the world to ban it. I'm not telling the world to ban it. I'm saying, in my opinion, it is an unfair advantage. I'm saying I don't want to see it banned. My point is, if I'm the other teams and I'm going to the competition committee to ban the play, I'm trying to convince the competition committee. Well, why would the competition committee vote on something as a safety thing as opposed to competition? You're giving me no reason to say there's a competitive advantage or disadvantage. I'm just saying they're presenting it wrong. I don't want to see the play banned. Obviously, as an Eagles fan, it works for them. That'd be idiotic. The questions that have been asked, AJ, to me by, generally Nuggets, it's come up on that segment a lot, is I personally think it is unfair for the offense. I think it's an unfair advantage to the offense. The thing they're talking about, I think, would help make it more fair, which I don't realistically want to see. I don't really want to see them fix the play. I'm just giving you an objective opinion here. I'm sorry, I got to be objective. I think the play's unfair. Now, would it be fair I think it was Bart Scott, who I don't agree with on very much, but he actually made a good point, and they showed this on Get Up the other day, is which the linebacker can't shove the defensive lineman forward. He can't push the defensive lineman forward. He's not allowed to do that. So why would the running back be able to push the quarterback forward? That's all I've advocated is I don't think the play is fair. I think the teams are not presenting it to the competition committee accurately.
This may be a dumb question, so I'm prefacing it with that. But just to play devil's advocate, why does it matter if it's fair?
Why does it matter if it's fair?
Like if someone's just really good at something and you can't stop it, then why does it matter if it's fair? Why doesn't, why does the fairness of a play come into the conversation?
I mean, I don't know. Do you want to legitimize the sport or not?
What makes it illegitimate?
Why is one side of the ball able to push and aid and the other side not? Wouldn't you say, well, why can the offensive players do it and I can't? So wouldn't you think that
why do we call more penalties on defensive players than offensive players? I mean,
just by nature is the fact that they're the defender. And I don't even know that that's accurate, by the way. I mean, you get holding calls all the time on offensive linemen. You get less on defensive players.
Well, overall, there's more penalties called on defense than offense.
I'll take your word for it, but I don't know that that's accurate. I mean, I don't watch a game and say, my gosh, there's so many more calls on defense.
Okay, well, even if you don't go for that.
In fact, when I watch a game, I actually think there's more on offense because a majority of the penalties are holding penalties.
I mean, that's not the point I'm making here because we can nitpick which plays or which Paul. What I'm talking about is there's a lot of things that favor the offense.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
So why don't we change the other rules then? Because if there's unfair advantage for the offense in those other areas, why are we only talking about this specific play?
Because this is the one that's been brought up. Nobody else is bringing up whatever one. You want to bring something else up, I'll be fine to weigh in on it.
But see,
this is the play that the teams around the league are bringing up. My point has been
you don't think that it's silly that they're only pointing out this play and nothing else.
What other play should they point out? Give me an example.
There's numerous examples that the
Give
offense,
me an example is what I'm asking.
Okay,
Give
well,
me an
hitting
example.
the quarterback. The quarterback, you basically can't hit the quarterback anymore. This whole thing where
that's a safety issue, though.
Is it though?
Absolutely.
So if I hit somebody else, it's okay. But if I hit the quarterback, it's a flag.
Well, you're not allowed to hit guys high. You can't hit them low. You can't hit them here. You can't hit them there. So, yeah, the quarterback is obviously a higher profile position that they're trying their best to make sure that they stay healthy. Are they doing it to an extreme? Absolutely. But the reason behind it is a safety issue. This play has no data to show safety is a problem. That's what I'm saying. If you're going to the competition committee and saying, we got to get rid of this play, well, why? Well, it's a safety issue. Well, I'm the competition committee. That's not what I'm here for. I'm here to make the game more, the competitive balance of the game. You're barking up the wrong tree is my point. If I'm going to the competition committee, I have to go to them, and my argument has to be that they're gaining a competitive advantage by using that play, and therefore, to make the game more fair, we need to do something about it. The competitive advantage, you're talking about a play with the quarterback. That is not going to the competition committee. They're just saying as a league, we've got to keep the quarterback safe, and therefore illegal hits are going to be if you hit the guy high, low, hit him right in the chest. And if you hit the guy, period, that's different.
So not to put words in your mouth, but you're saying there's different tiers to this conversation. And that there's one group of conversation that's about safety. There's another group of conversation about competitive advantage. And then everything else is
I've been saying that for this whole time. My problem with this play, if I'm another team, is the offense is allowed to have a competitive advantage that the defense cannot counter. He is allowed to have three players forcibly push a guy forward. How am I realistically supposed to fairly defend that?
So you feel like if you just took the push out of the play.
Yeah. If the running backs who are, when they set up, they have two running backs set up to the sides of the quarterback, one generally behind them.
Yes.
And they basically, he falls forward, and then as his momentum stops, you get these guys who either lower their shoulder or physically extend their arms out to help push that pile forward. And that extra push sometimes is the extra yardage necessary to kind of move the pile. The defensive team cannot run forward with a full head of steam and put their shoulder in and knock that a teammate forward into the offensive players. They can't do that.
So really quick, so before we hit the break, now from your perspective, I'm not saying this is what the NFL thinks or what I think right about, but from Mike Gill's perspective, would you rather give the defense the opportunity to push their guys forward or take away the offense's opportunity to push people forward?
I'm indifferent. I think if you said, hey, now the defense can also push, okay, you've at least leveled the playing field.
Okay.
I think now you're getting to a situation where it's just a tug of war, like an arm wrestling match, which is really like, who's winning this thing? I don't know. This guy's arms off the table, his elbows up in the air. There's really anything like that. You're just like, it's like spotting the football at that moment. I don't even know who's winning this. I don't know when the forward motion has stopped. So I think you're creating you're now creating another problem by making the defense allowed to now push. I think anyway. I'd have to see it. But to me, if you got one group, it's like a tug of war. I'm
Well,
pulling and pulling, and then you're pulling and pulling and pulling, and I'm pulling and pulling and pulling, and we're going back and forth here.
Well, it'd basically be like a rugby scrum. That's basically what it would be.
Yeah, which is why some of these teams are saying it's not a football play, it's a rugby play.
Which is ironic because literally football 100 years ago that's all it was a rugby scrum before they instituted the forward pass.
All right, we got the Nuggets on the other side. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, live video streaming on the X platform, YouTube at Mike Gill Show. 434 Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. I'm Mike Gill. Matt Gelb tonight going to talk some Phillies. 5:30 on the Sports Bash. Phil's day off. April Fools. Phil's play tonight. Just kidding. No April Fools for me. All right, Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. I got a couple of people watching on the YouTube channel. I'm going to throw those comments up on the screen as well. Nick Earnshaw is host of the Shift podcast. He's the producer of the Locker Room Weekends on 97.3 ESPN, and he has today's edition of Knicks Nuggets on the Sports Bash, brought to you by the Hub, gear that works for you, Knicks Nuggets. What's up, Earnshaw?
Oh, Mike, great to talk to you. And what a beautiful day to talk about it, the tush push. I mean, just a beautiful day to talk about it. And, that was the nugget I was going to get to yesterday. And I had to pack it away. We had to save it. And, we're going to rehash it. We're going to redo it again because I heard you and Josh talking about it. I know you and Kaplan were talking about it during Football 4. So that's how I'm going to start. Nugget number one's got to be about the tush push being tabled until May. And this goes along to what I wanted to talk about yesterday as well. Multiple reports coming out about it. I know Andrew Schultz also reported this morning that there were 16 teams who were in favor of banning the tush push. That's 8 short of how many they need to pass the legislation to get it. It feels like we're watching a government here. I mean, this is essentially how politics are played out. It's happening in the NFL with this tush push vote. We're pushing it back. And Gill, actually, he just spoke to the media, and he said something very interesting. He said, quote, "I think there are safety issues being considered with the tush push. We have very little data, but we see the potential risk. It makes a lot of sense to go back to the old rule prohibiting pulling or pushing ball carriers." That is from the commissioner of the National Football League. Mike, however, I agree with you, and I know you've tweeted it out there on the X platform. You've talked about it during the show today. If you are against the tush push, why on earth would you argue me, well, you could get hurt from it? There's plenty of data already out there on the tush push. It has been played over and over and over again. And before I have you respond, I want to play a soundbite from Sean McDermott yesterday regarding his stance on the tush push, because I think he's being very hypocritical. Here was Sean McDermott on his thoughts on the tush push.
Dove deeper into more of the data on it and, just thought more about it as well. And my position hasn't really changed at all. I feel where I'm most concerned is even though there's not significant data out there to this point, my biggest concern is the health and safety of the players, first and foremost.
If his concern was the health and safety of the players, then why is he running a version of it with Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills? I think that's very hypocritical from McDermott there. Mike, this has been a wide-ranging conversation, and it's just going to continue. Thoughts on Goodell and McDermott, their stances on the possibility of injury risk?
That's what I've been saying all along here, which is if you're going to the competition committee, you got to tell me why the play is forcing a competitive advantage one side or the other. You're not going to the competition committee with injury concerns. That's not a competitive advantage. It's not a competitive reason to now get rid of the play. So to me, these teams, Green Bay, Buffalo, they're approaching this the wrong way. If they said, I feel that there's a competitive disadvantage for the defensive side of the ball because they can push and pull the runner and the defensive players can't push their teammates to help that, then they have an advantage, and that's a competitive reason that the competition committee should look at. The competition committee should not be ruling on the safety of a play.
Yeah, I'm not. Listen, you can get hurt on any play. I mean, really. I mean, you can get hurt on any play. And this play specifically, there's no data on players getting hurt on this particular play. And I understand there's always a risk. Players could get hurt. But you can get hurt at any point during the game, okay? This play, no one's gotten hurt yet. It's worked. The Eagles have really done a good job at perfecting it and keeping their players safe. You've had Lane Johnson tweeting out today. I mean, he's out there. He's a lineman. He's the guy who has to go down into the trenches on this play. And he tweets out, hate us because they ain't us. So, I mean, he's the guy who's in it, doing it. He's not complaining. He's fine with the play. So I thought that was fascinating. I know Garofalo from NFL Network the other day reported regarding Nick Sirianni, saying, he was kind of referring to all his head coaches, his all old offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators, whoever around the league, the Kellen Moores, the Steichens of the world, saying they better vote to keep the tush push. I thought that was pretty funny. But I know one of your texters before, I forget who it was, brought up the defensive side of things. Well, yeah, I'm cool if they change the rules on the defensive side to make it more fair on that side of the ball to stop it. That's cool, but they should not get rid of the play just because one team can do it.
Everybody says one team can do it, and everybody else, whatever.
Effectively. One team can do it effectively.
Yeah, nobody even tries it, really. Nobody else even tries it. The Eagles do it like triple the amount as the next team. Buffalo's the next highest team. After that, nobody even really tries to do the play for whatever reason. I don't think teams, and again, it goes back to if you can't stop it, then why don't you do it, or you should try to stop it. The problem, I think, is these teams are saying that's the competitive problem. We can't stop it because they have a competitive advantage. It's asinine to think the Buffalo Bills do it at just as high of a clip, if not higher, than the Eagles do. It's not the Eagles do it better than everybody else. They do it more, and they choose to do it more. I don't know why other teams don't do it more. The competitive advantage should be from these teams is, of course, they're converting this play because they have a competitive advantage. This whole thing that the Eagles are so much better at it than stop them, of course they're going to convert it because it's an unfair advantage to the offense. Why do we not see this?
That's why I'm cool. Like, why not change the rules on the defensive side? If they line up in that formation, you should be able to push a defensive player or something. Why not?
We're looking, okay, fine. You want a linebacker to be able to sit there and push the guy forward. It's now we're getting into that's what we were just talking about. It's going to look like a freaking tug of war fight here. The guy's not going to know where to stop.
He's
not going to know where to.
As a viewer, you should love that. It's fun to watch because you know it's coming. You're waiting for it.
You know what's going to happen?
I love it.
The next thing that happens is the umpire or the officials, they don't know where to spot the ball. They don't know when the forward motion has stopped.
Well, that's great. It's a great segue, Mike, because I want to go into nugget number 2, and I want to talk about a rule that got changed today in measuring first downs, okay? They have changed the rules on measuring first downs. They are getting rid of the chain gang. They are going to be a secondary option, okay? They're going to use camera-based technology from Sony. Sony's Hawkeye technology is going to be the primary way to measure the line to gain. The technology will use 6 8K cameras to track the ball's position on the field. I like that because I never think they get it right anyway, using the chains. Yeah. So I'm glad they're using technology to get the spot of the ball right. So that's
this is an easy one. I mean, if you have the technology to do something like this, you do it. This goes back to the tush push play. You got one side pushing forward. If the other side's pushing back the other way, when are you deciding when the forward motion has stopped? Do I get another push? Do you get the push again? I mean, it's like enough already. Like this play, I'm so over the tush push play. I really don't even want to see it again. I don't care about it because the Eagles can turn around and hand the ball off to Saquon Barkley. They're the best line in football. The fact that the Eagles do it has caused all this conversation. But quite frankly, we're all giving the Eagles all this credit because they're the one team that does it. Nobody else even tries it. Nobody else does it.
Well, they've tried it, and then they failed at it, so they didn't try it again. I mean, they just didn't feel like dealing with it. The Eagles
Not really. The Buffalo Bills actually converted at a higher clip than the Eagles
I'm not saying Buffalo.
They just don't try it as much. No,
I'm saying other teams.
Nobody tries the play. Nobody does the play. We're all like, the Eagles are the one team that does it. Why are we penalizing them? The play, if we can't sit here and have a normal conversation and Nick Earnshaw say, you know what, Mike Gill, you are right. The play is unfair, but the Eagles are the ones smart enough to do it. That's a different story. The play is obviously the teams that run it at such a high clip because they have an advantage to run the play.
I want to ask you this. How come this has only come up when the Eagles made it to the Super Bowl in 22 and lost, It didn't come up last year when they fell apart, and then it comes up again this year. How come it was only then when the Eagles were in the Super Bowl or won the Super Bowl that it's become a massive deal? Didn't come up that much last year. Wasn't a giant discussion last year. I'm just saying, I'm going to point that out there.
That's a good point, because the Eagles were not relevant at that point, so it was kind of out of sight, out of mind. So you're right. They're bringing it up when it's convenient, but they're not wrong. These teams are not wrong. They're presenting it the wrong way. Their sour grapes are that they can't stop it. In fact, Todd Bowles, the Buccaneer coach, did say, or not Todd Bowles, Raheem Morris, the Falcons coach. He said, we can't stop the play because it's unfair. I can't call a defense to stop a play because I don't have the play to stop it. There isn't a play to stop a play where three guys can forcibly push a guy forward, and I can't do anything about that. So, yes, I don't want the play because he admitted I cannot stop the play. He's not an idiot. He's watching the game like a normal person.
That's why I'm cool with them changing the rules for the defense, too. I don't want to ban the play entirely. That's why I'm cool with them modifying the rules.
Well, let's take our Eagles glasses off is all my point.
I'm just saying.
The Eagles, if the Eagles weren't the team, you're just saying because the Eagles do it. If the Eagles didn't run the play and another team did it, you would say, I don't really care. The play's not fair. Get rid of it. But because the Eagles run it.
How you have Sean? I'm there. Buffalo's done it. They've worked at it. Sean McDermott's out there. If he's so worried about player safety, why is he even running it? Don't run the play then. You can't have it both ways if you're Sean McDermott. That's another issue I had with his comments yesterday.
Well, he's saying it, and again, he is saying this as a member of the competition committee. He's not saying it as the coach. So he's actually being objective and doing his job. You should try it.
Then why on earth is he out there? I'm being fair. I said the defense, I have no glasses on this because the defense should be able to have an opportunity to stop it. That is my point.
And they
I don't think the play itself should be banned. You should give the defense an opportunity to stop it.
I'm telling you right now, you don't want to see that. You do not want to see a game where the defensive players are pushing back and then they're pushing forward. It's going to look ridiculous.
It's going to look awesome.
Like I like it. It doesn't look awesome. You're an Eagles fan and you can't get it past it. If this was a play that the Cowboys ran, you would say, get rid of the play.
No. See, the Cowboys wouldn't be smart enough to run it. That's the problem here.
Regardless. This goes back to
like
people think that I like to lose on purpose and tank. No, I hate that you're able to do it, but I'm going to use the rule to my advantage if I can do it. Same thing here. I think the play should be outlawed because I think it's not fair. But that doesn't mean I want to see it gone if my team is utilizing it to their advantage. I can be objective enough to say the Eagles use it to their advantage. It works for them, and therefore I don't want to see it banned. But if you were asking me objectively as a non-Eagles supporter, I would say you would have to be a jackass to watch that play and think that it's fair. That's all.
Listen, I think the defense should be able to have a fair opportunity to stop it. That's all I'm trying to say.
And currently they do not.
And I'm cool with them changing the rule and modifying it to allow the defense.
But even so, we got a text message. We got a text message from Cole in LBI. He makes another good point, to which is the offense already has the advantage of being the team that knows the snap count. They start the play. The fact that they can also push their player essentially while the defense can't is the reason the play is unfair. Even if the D can push a teammate, the fact that the offense starts the play and can push the quarterback creates too much of an unfair advantage.
All right. Listen, this is a hot topic. I mean, we spent we did we did get the second nugget in there. I did sneak it in there on purpose.
We did.
We what was that? 15, 14 minutes?
I just I don't understand.
Listen, people have strong stances on this tush push thing.
I don't have a strong stances. I think this conversation, that the fact that it's gotten this high in the NFL circles is preposterous. If they can't come up with the right argument to say, I am the Green Bay Packers, my reason I don't want the tush push is they have three players that can push the quarterback forward and my defense cannot push forward. That's the advantage.
I mean, if you're the Green Bay Packers, you can utilize your resources, maybe even a first-round pick on an offensive player to help you out to utilize the tush push. I'm just saying, the rules are for everybody. They're there for everyone. The Eagles have just taken advantage of it.
They've taken advantage. The other team's not. I'm not debating that. My point is, again, The fact that the other teams are saying we want this play outlawed, they are presenting it the wrong way.
I agree with
They're
you.
presenting it as an injury risk, not as a competitive advantage. And therefore, unless they present it as a competitive reason, the competition committee says, beat it. You're not giving me a reason to say it's a competitive advantage. So my point is, I think the play is unfair, and at the same time, I think the teams are presenting it the wrong way to get rid of the play.
And I don't disagree. I think they are presenting in the wrong fashion with going with the injury route. I mean, even Roger Goodell mentioning it in his press conference today. All right, Mike, before I get out of here, I did want to mention, we got to get baseball in here somehow, some way, right? I want to mention the nugget number 3. The Atlanta Braves, Jurickson Profar, suspended 80 games. I mean, it was a big signing by them. He is now gone for 80 games. I also want to point out they are 0-5 in the division. They're 0-5. They're dead last in the division right now. And I got a little nugget for you about the Braves right now. With at least 5 at-bats on that roster, in that lineup, if you've had at least 5 at-bats, Profar was the only player batting 200 or above. Everybody in that lineup, because they don't have Acuna yet, is batting 200 or below. Just wanted to point that out there about the Atlanta Braves. Mike, 3-pack of nuggets. We got the third one in there today.
We got the third one in. Yes, they got a brutal schedule to start the season. Now, look what kind of text message this has stemmed, all right? There are plenty of rules that aren't the same on offense and defense. Why can't the defense throw the ball? Is that not fair?
Oh, jeez. All right.
What
Now
am I
we're getting
supposed
out
to
of
do
here.
with that one?
I don't know what you're supposed to do with that one, but I got to get out of here, I think, right? Music start? When's the music start?
20 seconds. I like this one. Explain the blitz. Defense can get a running start. That's a competitive advantage.
Oh, no.
I mean, really?
Really? All right. Listen,
they don't get any leverage. The advantage is the leverage. People, are you not understanding? The leverage is the advantage. The leverage.
Tush. Push. What a play. It's gonna go down in the history books. Listen, it's a historical play now. Never be forgotten. The brotherly shove, everybody.
Yep. All right.
I'm out.
There you go. Knicks Nuggets. Back again tomorrow. Thanks, Nick.
See you guys.
Good stuff from Earnshaw there on today's Nuggets. They're brought to you by The Hub, gear that works as hard as you do. I'm just advocating, if I'm Green Bay and I don't want the play, you got to present it better. NFL. The reason I don't want this play is because they have a competitive advantage by having 3 players forcibly push the offensive ball carrier forward, and I don't think that's fair. That's what they should be voting on, not the safety right now. There's not enough data for the safety, Green Bay. There's not enough data for the safety, Buffalo. I come cheap. You want me to work and give you the way to present it? I'm already helping the NBA out today. More Sports Bash coming up next. Matt Gelb at 5:30. 5 o'clock, driving you home. What's up? Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN. Mike Gill with you till the top of the hour tonight. We roll till 6. A lot of tush-push conversation today. Which, you're at the owners' meeting. The Eagles run this play. By the way, the Bills and the Eagles run the play. They have scored a touchdown or achieved a first down on 87% of their attempts using the play. That's Buffalo and Philadelphia. After those two teams, no one else really ever tries to do the play. It's I don't know who the third team is, but they are it's Eagles 1, Buffalo 2. I don't even know who's 3, but those two teams use it a lot. And Philadelphia uses it double the amount that Buffalo does. Now, for those of you just tuning in that wanted to say, all right, what happened with this tush-push play? They voted today to basically to table it. They didn't vote to get rid of it or keep it today. They're now going to talk about it at the meetings in May. Rich McKay, who's on the competition committee, admitted there are no safety concerns with the play. Bills coach Sean McDermott cited health and safety as the reason he wanted a ban. Well, no player has been injured on the play, so they said there's not enough data regarding the health and safety of the play. So instead of banning the play, the competition committee is researching whether to outlaw pushing or pulling on both sides of the ball. Currently, the offense is allowed to push, something defensive players are not allowed to do. So, and I'm going to go to the text board because somebody brought this up. They said, Mike, so as an Eagles fan, we have the ball on the half-yard line. You're saying you don't want to see the Eagles line up in tush-push formation, Matt and Kate May. No, Matt, I never said that. I want them to keep the play for the Eagles' sake. I'm taking my Eagles fan hat off and saying I think the play is unfair advantage to the offensive team. Do I want to see them get rid of the play? No, the Eagles run the play at a high clip. Of course I don't want to see them get rid of the play for the Eagles' sake. I'm an Eagles fan. But if I'm being objective, I don't think the play is fair for the offensive player to be able to get pushed by 3 people behind him. Sometimes it's 4, by the way. Sometimes they line up 2 running backs in the backfield. They have a tight end in the backfield. Then what you see the Eagles do sometimes, they send a man in motion. And the man in motion stops right behind the quarterback, and now he's got a full head of steam, and he pushes forward. The defense is not afforded that ability to run the ball, to push their teammates like that. They're not allowed to do it. So to me, it's a competitive advantage. It has nothing to do with the Eagles. I don't want to see the play banned because the Eagles run it so well. But if I'm being objective and you're just asking me as a football fan, I got to take my Eagles hat off and say I think the play is unfair. Josh, what do we have today? I know Jeffrey Lurie talked about this. I know Nick Sirianni talked about this. People all over the place. I mean, this thing has gotten crazy. This is like bed bugs.
Yeah, so let's start with Sirianni. Let's go a little chronological order, okay? Just kind of keep all this organized. So early this morning around, I don't know, maybe like 9:30 this morning, Nick Sirianni spoke to the media. And obviously the tush-push was one of the conversation points that was brought up. So Sirianni actually gave what I thought was an interesting explanation. Now, of course, Sirianni, half of his explanation is just kind of like word salad. So I kind of zeroed in on the part where he actually said something, which was he actually told us where the tush-push actually came from, where they got the idea to start running it. Here was Nick Sirianni's explanation this morning.
We played Detroit, and I think we were up 38-35 with a quarterback sneak to be able to kneel it out. And then kind of from there, it was like, that was a pretty important quarterback sneak to happen. Let's make sure we get him, and so that kind of evolved from there. We, did different formations, different pushers, and then we turned it into 2 pushers, and it was a cool evolution.
Okay, so they got it from somewhere.
But the idea was that you remember that play in 2022, that first game of the year where they almost lost to the Lions.
Early, the first game of the season.
And he said, it was after that play they kind of stepped back and they're like, that was a pretty important play. Maybe we should try to do it better.
Okay. So that's the genesis of where we are today.
And speaking of the quarterback sneak, which brings me to what Jeffrey Lurie said. Now, I can't verify what the owner of the Eagles said when he says this, but basically 6 hours after Sirianni said that, Jeffrey Lurie makes the claim that the tush push is actually safer, Mike, than the quarterback sneak.
Quarterback sneak is one of the reasons we like using the tush push is we think it's a safer play than the quarterback sneak. The quarterback sneak, if you talk to quarterbacks about it, there's more spearing going on. They're less protected by players around them. One of the reasons we got motivated to develop an expertise in this play is it was more protective to the quarterback.
Well, that's a great bite to play for the teams that are arguing safety. For one, there is no data to show that the play is a safety risk. And now you have Lurie saying that the play has basically been a substitute for the quarterback sneak because they deem it to be actually safer than a quarterback sneak. So that would really put a damper on the teams that are arguing against the play for safety reasons.
Now, do you buy that explanation from Jeffrey Lurie?
I have no reason not to. There's been no injuries.
Does it potentially being safer than the quarterback sneak at all offset what you talked about before, which is the competitive advantage that it has, though?
Well, no, the quarterback sneak, there's no competitive advantage, really. You know,
Right.
The quarterback just kind of goes forward.
But
there's
if
nobody gaining – nobody is being used to get leverage to push him forward to gain more momentum.
I know that, but what I'm saying is, does Jeffrey Lurie's explanation of the safety outweigh the competitive advantage?
No. It just negates the safety element of it being the reason, which I've argued all along. You're arguing the wrong thing. It's not a safety concern. It's a competitive advantage concern. I haven't changed my stance on that.
No, I'm asking you to change it. I'm just trying to try to fit everything in. So why do you then think, before we get to more of this audio, why do you think no one else has brought up this competitive advantage issue?
I don't know. I'm floored by the fact that I can't be the only one that sits here and says, I'm watching this play, and there's no way that thing should be legal. I mean, do you not watch that play and say they have a competitive advantage? Okay, maybe you're not watching it in the moment, but as I'm saying it, like, do you see a running back, another running back, a tight end, and sometimes a wide receiver all pushing the quarterback forward? Do we not think that that's a little bit unfair, that how the heck does the defense, which can't get any leverage, can't get any push the other way, how are they not supposed to give up an inch?
And I think that is where, if that is your argument, the one you're making, then it's the only legitimate argument.
And that's what I've said all along. It is a competitive advantage for the offense that they are allowed to get leverage that the defense is not.
I just don't understand why why does it have to be Mike Gill is the only one who thought? Like, you can't be the only person who sees this.
I listen, I come up with a lot of ideas and I'm like, how come nobody else thought of this?
Here's more from Eagles owner Jeffrey Lurie. He was asked about the whole environment at the owners' meetings, right? About teams wanting to get rid of this play. Here was the Eagles owner response to what it has been like for him down there with all these teams talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't ever remember a play being banned because a single team or a few teams were running it effectively. So it's part of what I think, I personally and I think most of us love about football is it's a chess match. Let the chess match play out. If for any reason it does get banned, we will try to be the very best at short yardage situations. And, we've got a lot of ideas there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a chess match. But if I'm playing chess and I have more pieces than you, I have an advantage.
Depends on the pieces.
Sure.
But isn't that
if
part
I have
of it?
two queens and you don't.
Well, for example, if the Eagles didn't have a quarterback who could squat 600 pounds and an offensive line that weighs almost 2,000 pounds combined, that adds to their competitive advantage, doesn't it?
Sure.
on top of just the pushing.
Listen, I think, as he said, we'll just come up with another way to, I feel like this has gotten blown so out of proportion because they run this play and they don't have to. They don't have to run the play. So maybe his point about the injury thing is accurate. Maybe they are running it because they feel it's safer. But I don't think they even need to run the play. They have a quarterback who could do a quarterback sneak and probably get the yards, although there are times when he gets pushed forward by the momentum of the tight end, Dallas Goedert, or the running back, Saquon Barkley, or Kenny Gainwell, or A.J. Brown. And sometimes that extra push is what pushes them forward. Yes, the Eagles have the best offensive line. They have awesome guards that you could go behind. So you probably can still get those short yardage at a pretty high clip. They are choosing to run this play, but the genesis of the play, which has 3 players pushing a ball carrier forward, is probably not fair to the defense. Now, if we don't care that it's not fair to the defense, that's a different conversation. I'm just trying to be objective. That's all. Call me crazy.
No, listen, I'd rather you be objective than just, get on here and just scream and yell and be like, everybody hates Philadelphia.
Including me, apparently.
The other point that Jeffrey Lurie made on the tush push part, which I thought was interesting because it was brought to his attention with so for those who didn't hear what happened, so Rich McKay, he's in charge of the competition committee.
Mm-hmm.
He talked to the media earlier in the day about the aesthetic of the play.
See, that to me shouldn't matter. But go ahead. I'm saying, that should not be taken into account what the aesthetics of the play is.
To which Jeffrey Lurie, as you can imagine, took some issue.
As he should.
With somebody complaining about the aesthetic and compares it to football 100 years ago.
I remember reading about the forward pass, and they said it really was an odd play that is no part of American football, and so it was controversial when the forward pass came out. I think aestheticism is very subjective. I've never judged whether a play looks okay. Does a screen pass look better than a in route or an out route? I don't know. To me, it's not a very relevant critique that it doesn't look right or something like that.
That I would agree with.
What looks right? Scoring. We like to win and score.
I would agree. Yeah, it's not a relative critique. Back in the day when you used to see, the triple option or the wishbone, aesthetically not great, right? But that shouldn't be a reason why you get rid of a play because it is aesthetically unpleasing.
I will say that you remember, Mike, it was suggested that part of the reason why the Eagles signed A.J. Dillon was with the idea that if the tush push is gotten rid of, that they might run like a wishbone full house backfield instead.
Well, you saw these teams use a tight end to do it, so now you've added a little wrinkle to it. I think that the fact that there's some evolution and creativity to it adds to the fact that there is a play involved here. Glenn from Absecon says teams still run quarterback sneaks successfully and unsuccessfully. It's just another football play. Sometimes the players that are supposed to be doing the pushing don't really assist or push the quarterback at all. Yes, you're right about that, Glenn. There are times where they don't need the push. But there are times where that's where the quarterback is his momentum seems to be stopped, and then that's when the 3 guys go running forward and just bang that line forward and give it that extra momentum to go forward. So, yeah, you're right. It's not every instance because sometimes they're just running a quarterback sneak with the 3 players just kind of standing there. Those 3 players sometimes, though, are kind of hey, let's see if he needs our help. Oh, now he needs our help. Let's go. And then they go running and throw their shoulders into the line and then push that momentum of the pile. And then that's when the officials say, okay, forward progress has stopped. We're going to mark it up here instead of back here. So it just becomes a spotting nightmare.
And as Lurie said, they apparently already have ideas in place in case this thing does get banned, which I thought was an interesting comment he made at the end of the one bite there, which he's like, hey, we got some ideas we could do.
Goody in Galloway says, the NFL hates a play that works, but it's boring. I believe the play is legal, but the pushing needs to possibly be limited to one player engaging a player in front. Maybe that's a compromise. The Eagles mastered a play, others can't. They shouldn't be punished for that, so now teams want it banned. Yeah, I mean, the the fact that the Eagles are the one team that does it more than anybody else. But here's the other wrinkle to it. The other team that does it well, Buffalo, also wants it banned.
which is strange. It kind of makes you wonder what, is there something that we don't know? You know what I mean? Like, is there some...
Well, he's a part of the competition committee. Now, the problem with McDermott, his argument isn't a competition advantage. It is a injury advantage, which doesn't make a lot of sense because his team doesn't have any injuries from the play, and they do it at a high percentage. So the person who's saying the Eagles are the team that does it well, Buffalo also does it a lot, and they do it well. Now, the Eagles double the amount that Buffalo runs it.
Right.
And for whatever reason. Maybe they have less third and shorts. I don't know. Maybe they have less third and goals. Whatever the reason is. But Buffalo does run it at a pretty decent amount, and they run it at a high percentage of success. But they also want it gone. I don't know why. That seems to be bizarre. Phil in Brigantine says, Mike, as an Eagles fan, I'm glad, but I agree that it's an unfair competitive advantage. It's obvious, although it must be said the Eagles have a strong quarterback that can squat 600 and can withstand 3 large men crashing his body from behind. Same with a quarterback with the size like Josh Allen. Think of the quarterbacks in the league that would be in traction if Saquon, Goddard, and A.J. blasted into them. Mahomes would immediately be on the IR, or older quarterbacks like Stafford or Rodgers out. Honestly, that's the real injury concern. That's an outside-the-box thought. Is the injury concern is teams can't run it because they're afraid their quarterback would get hurt if they did. That's pretty good.
That's an interesting one. It also makes you wonder, because I think what the texture didn't bring up is also, how about the fact that the Eagles just have a bigger offensive line than everybody else? The Eagles have the bodies. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they do. I mean, the Eagles have the best offensive line. Their quarterback can squat. We know
not
all
just
the
best,
specifics.
The biggest offensive line.
Right, but that still doesn't mean that they don't need the help from the 3 guys pushing at times.
I agree.
So even though they have this great offensive line, great big bodies, quarterback that can squat, there are still times where that's not enough, and they need that extra push to move the pile forward. And if they didn't have that push on some of these plays, they wouldn't make the first down. But they get the extra push, which probably shouldn't be legal.
Again,
like people are bringing up, like this guy brought up before about, why can the blitzer run and he's allowed to get full speed ahead. The offense and defense are 2 different sides of the ball. But if you have 2 things that are the same element, one offensive line, the other offensive line, they go forward and block. Then the quarterback goes forward, and I have 3 players that can push that quarterback. The defense isn't allowed to counter that by pushing their players back. So that's different than saying, hey, we're on defense, we run a blitz. Yes, of course you could run forward but they can't push the guy forward. He has to run freely by himself.
I will say I think outside of what you're talking about here, Mike, I think one of the points that you made earlier, which was I want to bring up here, is you said earlier that there's really no other play where either side has a legitimate competitive advantage, that the rules have pretty much made it as even as humanly possible. So I think that is kind of where the rub is here.
Well,
right?
Listen, I definitely think that defensive players have a tougher time with the rules. They can't hold, they can't grab, they can't clutch, they can't do this, they can't do that, they can't do anything. I mean, you can't touch anybody, you can't tackle anybody. So the rules are definitely slanted more towards the offense. But many of them are safety-oriented.
Or they're just common sense oriented. It's the idea that if you're telling the offense they can't push off, you can't tell the defense they can push off. It's the idea that if the offense is not allowed to set a pick play, then you're not allowed to undercut the offensive lineman.
Yeah.
There's kind of like a counterbalance going on here.
Right. This situation is more, and the defensive. Raheem Morris is a defensive-minded coach, right?
Yes.
He was a defensive coordinator, and he's saying, look, I'm admitting we can't stop the play. Why would I be able to stop the play? They have an advantage.
And that kind of gets to what Peter Schrager was saying about how it's these newer age of coaches who are all coming out and speaking out against it. Your Morrises, your McVays, and others. Peter Schrager said that some of this is being painted as a Philly versus everybody else deal. This was on the Pat McAfee show earlier today. Peter Schrager, by the way, ESPN's new NFL insider, Peter Schrager.
That's right.
Howie obviously didn't play college or professional football. Howie's, this brilliant mind. But like talking to Howie about he's got his chest out a little bit, like, oh, poor babies, like you guys can't stop it. Like there's a little bit of that. And that bleeds throughout the entire city, and it goes, we're just tougher than you. Like, bring it. And you see these coaches, and McVay is obviously, you saw him in Whitworth in the gym. Like, he's no softy, but he's like, it's just not good football. It's gross. Like, it's a rugby play.
Again, the aesthetics of the play, I don't think should be in question here.
But it's funny that now it's being painted as we're Philly, we're tough, and the rest of you are not.
Yeah.
And, Peter's point is that it's like, they're like leaning into this now. They're leaning into this idea that, hey, we're tough and you're not kind of attitude, which is funny because I think back to what Earnshaw said during the Nuggets segment, which is if Philly didn't win a Super Bowl, how does this change the conversation?
Definitely, yeah. I think the fact that they were good, it worked, it definitely brought more attention to the play. Here's what Raheem Morris said. He is the Atlanta Falcons head coach. He is in favor of banning the tush push. Here's why.
I thought it should have been illegal 3 years ago. No, the tush push play, I was never been a big fan. There's just no other play in our game where you can absolutely get behind somebody and push them, pull them off, do anything to be able to use it. I never really understood it and why that was legal. So I'm definitely going to be one of those guys voting against that.
All right, so that's Raheem Morris. He said, I've never been able to understand why you could pull guys forward. I mean, I'm with you, Raheem.
And I think that's
Especially as a defensive coach. He's a defensive coach and saying,
Yeah.
well, what am I supposed to do as a defensive coordinator? What do I call to stop that play?
And I think that's why Goodell said what he said about 90 minutes ago, which is basically he came out and said that, the conversation moving forward is probably going to be, can we eliminate all pushing and pulling from any play? And then it's less about the tush push, and it's more about just creating more uniformity.
Yeah, so I guess, if you have this play and it basically just turns back into a quarterback sneak.
Right.
Yeah. You're what you would be outlawing is the ability to
push the quarterback.
Push forward and give your ball carrier extra leverage.
Right. And now instead you get back to a different style of football, which is can we, like I mentioned earlier, like a full house backfield where you have three players back there with the quarterback and you put everybody in a gap and give the quarterback more openings to run through for the sneak.
Yeah, I think, the crux of this has become the leverage portion of it. And like defensive players, for instance, the guy on the extra points or field goals, you can't put your hands on the player in front of you on the defensive line and use that to jump higher.
Correct.
Can't gain any extra leverage if you're a defensive
You're
player.
also not allowed to disrupt the long snapper in his technique because they consider
Well, you
him
can't even line up over top of him anymore.
Right, you can't do that either. So like they have literally created rules where you cannot actually physically impose yourself on somebody who can't defend themselves.
That's right. All right, so the NFL is considering prohibiting pushing and pulling, which would then essentially outlaw the tush push.
The mechanics of it, yes.
The way that it's kind of put together with the quarterback moving forward and the running back and the tight end and the other running back and the wide receiver all running full force ahead and pushing him forward.
Mike, we didn't get to it, but coming up, I did want to get your perspective on someone who's involved in the tush push and his future with the Eagles.
All right, we got that. We got Phillies odds I want to get into as well. How did my man Christopher Sanchez's odds improve after yesterday's game? I want to take a look at that. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, and live video streaming on the X platform and on YouTube at Mike Gill Show. Subscribe, watch the show on your home TV, hit the cast button, and be a part of it every day right here on the Sports Bash. All right, 531 Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN. Yesterday, we took a look at Christopher Sanchez's Cy Young odds. We'll get to that in a second. What about, so we're kind of going down this tush-push road here, which I never want to go back down again.
Well, I'm changing the topic for you right here.
Jeez.
Because Sirianni did have more to talk about than just the tush-push today.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a player who's been involved in the tush-push who was asked about, and that being Dallas Goedert. Now, you have talked with Jeff Mosher and Adam Kaplan in the last few weeks, Mike, about Goddard's future with the Eagles. Well, Nick Sirianni was asked about it, and he was asked explicitly about, hey, Dallas Goedert, he's a guy who's been a big part of your team over the years, and now it looks like there's been rumors that he might be gone, right? And I want you to listen to Sirianni's answer, and you tell me, Mike, are you reading into this what I am reading into this? Because when I heard this answer, it made me sit up and look around and be like, am I the only person who just heard that?
Right now, he's on our football team, and obviously Dallas Goedert has meant a lot to us. We'll see how that plays out. He's a heck of a football player, heck of a leader, and we want to be able to have back as many guys as you possibly can, but that is not the reality of the NFL. We got a lot of, so we'll see what happens and how that happens, but of course you want everyone back.
Yeah, right now he's on our football team. The start of that is the one that doesn't give you a lot of confidence.
Yeah, and he goes on to say, we can't have everyone back. He's been a good guy. We'd like to have him back. And it sounds like to me, Mike, that Dallas Goedert is as good as gone.
Yeah, that one would not give me a lot of confidence if I was him to make it sound as if no, we want Dallas here. He's a part of our football team. Now, he went down that road towards the end here, but there's no doubt in my mind, the Eagles want Dallas Goedert back, but they want to reduce the financial number for him.
I mean, Mike, that was like the opposite. Remember this offseason when Rob Thompson vehemently denied, we're not trading Alec Boehm. I don't know what you guys are talking about. That was the opposite of Rob Thompson with Boehm. Sirianni's like, well, he's on our team for now.
Yeah, exactly. He's here now. I mean, if we have to.
Right. If we have to play him, we will. It's like, geez, Nick.
So there's a play here. You talk about Dallas Goedert. I'm going to pull this up for the people who are watching the show on the X platform and on YouTube, okay? I'm going to play the play for you. Now, the people on the radio won't really be able to see the play, but I'll kind of describe it for you.
Play by play for us,
This
Mike.
is an example. Now, Goddard is in the play, and he says he takes pride in being the finisher on the tush-push play, all right? So here we go. I'm going to push play on this, and you'll see the play line up and how Goddard and A.J. Brown push this pile and really make it a unfair advantage for the Eagles' offense. Take a watch. All right? So there they are. Goddard, he's to the left. Brown is to the right. Hurts takes the snap, and there goes Goddard, and he just absolutely, literally, that play was pretty much about done. And Goddard pushes the top part of Jalen Hurts and almost throws him over the top of the line there.
Yeah, and it's not even like a normal push. It's more like you said, like a leverage throw. Like he literally gets his hands under the padding on his back.
Well, and you also, you can hear, we can play some of the audio for you here so the people on the radio can hear some of the stuff that's being said here. All right, here you go.
Let's see if we are in brotherly shove territory. All day, baby. You know that. The leader in quarterback runs for touchdown in the NFL. Adding to it with another one. Good job, baby. I got a mean push right there.
They kind of take that play personally around here, don't they?
Wilkins, right away, he stood him up. He's like, nope. I started pushing. I put my hand right on his arm. I said, nope. I said, yeah, no, my ass. Dog.
So there you go. You can even hear him admit, I started pushing, and then he was like, nope, and then I pushed it more, and that extra push was the reason they scored that touchdown on that particular play there.
Yeah.
By the way, you can see clearly he just launches himself forward and pushes that whole pile forward.
Now, I got to say, because that play you just played on Mike Gill's, at Mike Gill on Twitter X.
At Mike Gill's show.
At Mike Gill's show on Twitter X and as well on the stream. What uniforms were they wearing, Mike?
Kelly Green.
I'm surprised Nuggets didn't bring this up to you,
Me
but the
too.
Eagles are going to wear the Kelly Green 4 times next year.
Yeah, all the teams are allowed to now wear their throwback unis up to 4 times next year.
To which, how do you feel, Mike? Because on one hand, you've kind of been like not that excited about the Kelly Green uniform, but on the flip side, they are undefeated when wearing that uniform.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with them wearing it. I mean, if you're asking me which one do I like better, what do I have on today?
You have the midnight green.
I have the midnight green on. Somebody said to me in the office today, "Oh, going Eagles? Phillies season." I said, "Eagles won the Super Bowl. I wear the Eagles all year long."
I am also wearing the midnight green.
We didn't put that
We
together.
did not.
Phillies are
match.
off today.
We did not match.
Phillies are off today.
I did not call you this morning and ask you what you were wearing.
No. Yesterday on the Sports Bash, I'm going to look at some Phillies odds real quick. Phillies won yesterday. Christopher Sanchez was plus 2,500, was it?
Plus 2,500 yesterday.
To win the Cy Young Award.
Correct.
After yesterday's outing, where do you think he is?
Well, he had a good, not great outing. So I'm going to say now it's plus 2,000.
He had a good, not great outing. I would disagree with you there. I mean, the guy ended up with at the end of the day, didn't he have 7, 8 strikeouts?
I think he had 7 strikeouts.
7 strikeouts in 6 innings?
Yeah.
I mean, in today's world, that's a pretty good day. I know what you're thinking. Back in the day, that's just an okay day. I mean, but
I'm just thinking in terms of
hold on. Let me get the final box up for him. So he yesterday.
Yes.
No, that's the wrong game. Yesterday was what day?
Yesterday was the
Monday,
March 31st.
Yeah, Monday. Oh, here we go.
Is one of those things where it cuts you off by calendar day?
I had the wrong day up. He went 5 1/3.
Okay.
7 strikeouts, 1 run. So he ended the day with a 1.69 ERA to start the season off here. I don't know how many walks. Let me see if I can get the walks here. He had 2 walks, 7 strikeouts. He gave up the home run, 1 run, 4 hits, 5 1/3. The 5 1/3 is not great. 1.69 ERA is pretty solid. So that's his first start of the year. He is now plus 1,800.
It's a little higher than I expected.
He didn't get the win yesterday. See, I thought he got the win yesterday.
No, he didn't because he gave
ended
up the
not
run
getting
and then left the game.
Yeah, once he left the game, they were down 1-0. See, I thought they scored the runs before he came out of the game.
No, it was after.
Kirkering came in and finished that inning up, and then they scored the
because
runs.
remember, Marquez, he shut the Phillies out.
Mm-hmm.
The Phillies only scored when they got into the Rockies bullpen. And I don't know how you feel, Mike, but this is now every one of the Phillies wins, they have scored their runs on the other team's bullpen, not on the other team's starter.
Yeah, I mean, it's early. That's what good teams do, though. They get the starter out of there, then they beat up on the bullpen.
Gotcha.
But you want to see them be able to score runs against everybody. No question about it. Generally, though, the starting pitchers are better than the relief pitchers. You get into a bullpen if you can keep the game close. The Phillies' whole blueprint is they have good enough starting pitching that they should be in the games, and if they can get into the other team's bullpens, it's a blueprint to win a lot of games. What I will say is it's not a blueprint to win a lot of playoff games because the playoff bullpens are going to be better than the Rockies.
Way better.
And the Nationals.
And the Nationals, yeah.
Wheeler is plus 650 now.
He was 650 yesterday.
Sanchez is plus 1,800.
Okay.
So he made a big jump already.
25 to 18.
I told you if you like Sanchez, you should have got on him yesterday. Probably the best you're going to get.
What's Luzardo at now?
Luzardo.
He was in between Wheeler and Sanchez yesterday.
I do not see Luzardo on this list. There is no Luzardo on my list.
That's weird. Yesterday he was plus 1,100.
Plus 1,100 for Luzardo yesterday. He is
not listed today.
I don't see him on the list. Well, I don't know if you were using a different app than I was.
I might have been.
Yeah. He is not on this one anywhere. I mean, I'm going all the way down to plus 20,000, Edwin Diaz.
He ain't winning.
The only Phillies starters on this list are, I don't even see Nola on the list.
He wasn't on my list yesterday.
Yeah. You got Wheeler at plus 650 and Sanchez at plus 1,800. They're the only two. For MVP, I'm just going to see because I want to see where Schwarber is right now because he's gotten off to a pretty fast start here. For Schwarber, Bryce Harper plus 1,800. Schwarber is plus 9,000.
Wow.
You have any interest in that?
I mean, you want to throw just $10 on it and just say, go for it, boy.
Schwarber is hitting .353 with 3 homers and 6 RBI to start the season. You can get him at plus 9,000 right now to be the MVP of the league.
I mean, how can you say no?
I mean, yeah, if you want to just have a little fun and say, hey, here's a Finsky.
Right. Just be like, here's $10.
Might as well. I like that just for fun, but I like the Christopher Sanchez one. I would have rather have jumped in on it yesterday.
You're right. You were saying yesterday was the time to get it because it would never be as high as it was then, the rest of the year.
All right. I want to go over to some Flyers real quick. According to Elliot Friedman, the Canucks would like to bring Rick Tocchet back as their coach.
Interesting.
Would that upset Billy Schwein?
It's a good question. I tried to ask Schwein about this a few days ago, and he gave me a bunch of Nick Sirianni type answers.
Some word salad.
Yeah, so I'm not fully sure where Billy stands on this, but I do find it interesting that Vancouver would want him back because the speculation was that there had been some turbulence with the Canucks this year, and that there might have been a feeling of like, is Tocchet wearing out his welcome there?
Yeah, well, initially when Tortorella got fired, a lot of the Flyer faithful fans went right back to Old Faithful and trying to find a former Flyer.
Naturally.
And they go right down the Tocchet route there. Did Durso give you any other names that enticed you?
Durso didn't give me as many names as he gave me more of like the type of coach the Flyers want. That, obviously because Tortorella was such a, wildly strict individual, that they're going to want someone who's maybe a little more of a player's coach and maybe someone more willing to listen to the players. He also said to me last night that there's no way they bring back Shaw because he says he's
winning too much?
No, because he's too closely tied to Tortorella. That the organization needs a clean slate with all the coaching staff.
Yeah, they usually don't, the interim doesn't normally get the full-time job when they're only there for 9 games. Generally you're there just to play out the string here. Now, if you fired Tortorella earlier in the season and then Shaw came in and ended up winning a lot of games, that's a different story.
Right, then it's completely different.
By the way, the Flyers do sit 6 points out of a playoff berth. Is that re-entering your mind the way they're playing here recently?
No. I think, as I said earlier in the show to you, Mike, that I think you can't treat hockey like basketball when it comes to this stuff. I think the Flyers are pretty much DOA out of the playoffs no matter what. And
well, they have 2 games up on everybody. They've played 76. The Rangers, the Canadiens, who are in the playoffs right now, have played 73. Ottawa's played 73. The Flyers are the only team in the East, other than New Jersey, that have played 76. Everybody else has played less than the Flyers. So, yeah, the Flyers are not making the playoffs. I'm just kind of half joking here because they keep winning.
I think that, as I said before, me and Durso talked about this last night, this stretch of games feels like it's more about 2 things than anything else. One, the cloud of Tortorella is off of some of these guys, and now some of these guys are playing more freely.
Well, they're off the rest of the week.
Which probably means they'll probably lose at the end of the week.
They play Montreal on Saturday.
They were joking on the Flyers broadcast here on 97.3 last night that they said, who made this schedule?
Yeah, Montreal on Saturday. Then they don't play again till Wednesday. They play the Rangers on Wednesday, then again on Saturday against the Islanders. And, of course, they have a back-to-back. It's Islanders, Ottawa, then Columbus and Buffalo.
Yeah, they were saying last night, they're like, whoever made this schedule really must hate the Flyers.
Well, and a lot of those teams are against bad teams.
Right.
So, I mean, the Flyers are probably going to win some more of these games here.
The other side of this conversation is apparently Matvey Mishkov, I don't know if you heard about this, Mike. He has been not happy that he has not been talked about more in the Rookie of the Year voting.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently he keeps telling all the media who will listen that he's going to get a hat trick for the end of the season. Right now, he has 4 goals in the last 3 games and 7 overall points. He has actually scored more in the last 3 games than the previous 11 combined since they got rid of Tortorella.
Well, he's certainly in the conversation, I would imagine.
Well, now he is. It was Durso has made the point that basically, if Mishkov can get past that 60 point on the year mark, he thinks that is what's going to keep him in that conversation.
Flyers Saturday, and that's against Montreal. Sixers play tonight. Gershon Yabusele is listed as questionable.
Shocking.
I guess he's the only guy they can figure out a way to put on the injured list tonight. I like Pompey wrote an article today for the Inquirer. How low can they go? The Sixers are giving a master class in tanking. And they are. They're losing every game. It's beautiful. They need to, though. They do.
They are the messiest of all the teams in Philadelphia at this point.
Well, the Flyers we talked about earlier, like them losing and getting better draft position isn't nearly as important as Philadelphia, the Sixers.
Also, as you mentioned, the Sixers, if they don't finish in the top odds, they have no pick.
That's
Flyers
right.
got 3 first-round picks, so at least they got some, stuff to play around with.
That's the big difference. Coming up, I got the Bet365 play of the day to wrap up the show. You can be a part of the show. 609-403-0973. Got our Eagles draft party. Listen starting Thursday morning for your first chance to enter to win Eagles Club Box tickets for a home game this season at the Link. Plus, you can win an overnight stay at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. The winning starts on Thursday's show. All right, let's get to the Bet365 play of the day. Before we get there, let's check out how we did last night.
Mike, you split the difference. You went 1-1 last night. The Rockets could not keep up with the Lakers, so they could not cover. But the Celtics did smash the Grizz last night.
Yes, they did.
So you are now 138, 92, and 1.
138, 92, and 1. Let's go 2-0 tonight. Let's go Golden State 4.5 favored over Memphis. Memphis on the back-to-back tonight. I'll take the Warriors. And I like the Hawks tonight, minus 5.5 against Portland. The Trail Blazers. I think the Hawks cover the 5.5 on that one as well. I also like the Knicks tonight against the Sixers. I think that number is 13.5 if you want to play along with that one. But I'll give you my Bet365 plays of the day. Golden State minus 4.5 against Memphis. And Atlanta, the Hawks, minus 5.5 against Portland. And they are my Bet365 plays of the day.
Mike, you survived the day talking about the tush push.
Yeah, that wasn't enjoyable.
Would have been a better conversation. We just called it brotherly shove all day.
Something different. Tomorrow will be different, I promise. Oh, maybe, we'll see. Not a whole lot happening out there. Phillies off tonight. They'll be back tomorrow. It'll be interesting. I think Trey Turner's back tomorrow. Is the lefty pitching for Colorado?
I think Freeland is pitching tomorrow. Let me check real quick.
So that would be a possibility. We'll see what they do with the lineup for the Phils. And we'll have that for you tomorrow when it comes out on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. All right, game night's up next.
Yep, lefty tomorrow.
Yeah, lefty Freeland tomorrow, which means if they're going by the way what they've been saying, that means Turner should hit leadoff tomorrow, and Schwarber would be in the 4-hole tomorrow. We'll see if they stick with that. All right, I'm back tomorrow. Josh has game night up next. Have a great night, everybody. See ya.